better system? Isn't that a better system than we have now?
Okay.
It's just gonna take a little while. I got sheriffs and potential.
It's 4:30.
January 2nd.
Okay, I just finished an email. I wanna visit with you about another matter.
All right, it's 4:30. I'm gonna call the meeting to order, please. For public information, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted on the east wall of the Commissioners' room. Roll call, please.
Meyer,
Here.
Harris,
Here.
Knapper, Reisig,
Here.
Blue.
Here.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Anybody have any changes? If
I
not,
don't have any
I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Record your votes.
Man, I held that down a long time. There it went.
Did they all go, Kelly? I can't tell.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, thank you. I want to remind everybody that the board does reserve the right to enter into a closed session at any time that we feel it's necessary. Moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody want anything removed? Not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Record your votes. Okay.
Justice.
Thank you. A motion to move into Board of Equalization.
I move that we move into the Board of
Is
Equalization.
there a second?
All second.
Any discussion? Record your votes. You've all had a chance to look at the tax list corrections. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the tax list corrections.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Record your votes. Next item, discuss, consider approval of report. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Speed racer.
Can I go now?
Now.
Thank you. Next item, discuss, consider the approval of report of destroyed real property. Who's presenting? Robert's doing that, okay?
Okay. Good evening, gentlemen. In your packet, you should have a copy of the report of destroyed real property, Form 425, from the Wiedemann Family Trust. They have a property out on South Mitchell Road. It's 80592 Mitchell South Road, Mitchell, Nebraska. And they have a good deal of land there, but they had a pretty old barn, 100-year-old barn. It was a really beautiful barn. The value on it was $3,740. In your packet, you should have a picture of said barn that has been totally destroyed, and they're going to begin removing the remains of the structure here very shortly. So my recommendation is the board completely remove that building from their 2024
What
valuation.
about the foundation or anything else? I know in the past, if there was any concrete left, there was still value to it. That's what we were always told.
I don't think there's going to be any value to this.
He's
I mean,
got-
it's a 100-year-old building.
I looked at it. I'm gonna probably tear it down. I'm in the process of writing them a quote right now. They wanna keep two side walls that they can lay gated pipe in so the gated pipe won't blow away, but if they stand, it'll be a miracle. That's really bad.
Well, I'm just saying, but over the years, if you tore a building down and there was a pad left, you were taxed on that concrete, which I disagreed with,
I
but.
do too.
Yeah, there's no pad here, it's just knee walls.
Okay,
Am I correct on that?
You know, I don't know if, I can't remember if there's floor, and I didn't look for a floor. so
Yeah, I don't believe there's
Probably
a
not that
floor
you-
there, it's
you
just the
guys
knee
probably looked
walls. Yeah, I've been by it.
I didn't
and,
drive
But I
by
don't
it.
think there's any value there. Not at all, they're not gonna rebuild the structure.
okay, what's the board's pleasure?
Well, I move that we approve the report of the destructive property.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion?
So, the deduction is the 3,740.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Any other discussion? Record your votes, please.
Can you
Did it
take this
twice
to him
again.
for me? He doesn't give me time. Thank you.
What's that? I never put the date on.
I always put the date on it for you.
Really? You wanna go down that road? All right, now you should be safe. All righty, thank you. All right, I need a motion to come out of Board of Equalization, please.
I move we come out of Board of Equalization.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Record your votes.
This does not work.
Ken?
Let's push it 2 or 3 times.
What, mine didn't
One
go
more
either?
time.
Yours didn't work either.
Must have the same disease yours has, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, Kelly, I mean, just off the subject, can we look at maybe getting something different than these, because we seem to have issues with them, I don't know why. Don't look at me like that. Okay, just for fun. We won't use them at, tax protests,
I know we won't.
okay.
We can't.
All right, general agenda items, receive update from Twin City Development, Jordan.
Hello, Jordan Dietrich. I'm the Executive Director of Twin Cities Development. Thank you, Commissioners, for having me this evening to give you an update on TCD. So we have 4 main focus areas: housing, workforce development, community development, and then business retention, expansion, and attraction. I'll start with housing. So most of everything that I'm going to go over is kind of the last year and a half statistics. So for rural workforce housing, which is a revolving loan fund that TCD manages through 2 grants that we've gotten through the state of Nebraska, we have done 12 new construction projects in the last year and a half and 18 rehabs. So that's 30 housing projects in the last year and a half.
Was all CDBG,
What was that?
those are all,
That's rural workforce housing, RW, HF. So, and that's through the state of Nebraska, and then also matching funds through the cities. So, Scotts Bluff, Gearing, Baird, Kimball, and Mitchell all put matching funds into that as well. So we've spent over $3.3 million in our fund towards that, and that's just our part of it. So all of these have to have at least 10% equity in the project. Some of them have well over 10% equity, but we've done 30 properties in the last year and a half, which is all increasing property taxes, which benefits the county, the schools, cities, and everybody else. Another thing that we do is down payment assistance. So in the last year and a half, we have helped 26 families be able to purchase their homes. And so the requirements for this is it's low to moderate income families, so they have to meet a certain threshold. But we were able to help 26 families, and that's $78,379 in the last year and a half. And then we also do repair assistance on the other side of that. So we do down payment and then also repairs. And so the repair assistance basically is whatever repairs need to be made so that they can close on the property. Some of these families don't have the money to be able to complete those repairs, so we also assist with that. And we have
Jordan,
done.
excuse me, is that run through WinHo or through TCD?
That's, yeah, WinHo and TCD. Yeah.
Oh, so that's a WinHo project?
Yeah,
then?
WinHo project, and
They're
TCD
still
does all the
doing
labor
that.
through that. Yeah. So yeah, down payment assistance and repair is WinHo, and TCD does all the labor for those. And that's a total, so and that was 30,903 for that one. And so the total is 109,282 for those. But yes, you're correct. That's WinHo. So that's kind of our sister nonprofit that we work with to do these projects. And then we also, through WinHo, offer the home ownership classes. I don't have the numbers on that. We have done at least 8 this year for that. And it kind of goes in with these. When someone does a down payment assistance, we require them to do a home ownership class. So we run those home ownership classes with some other people too, some people from Platte Valley Bank and some mortgage companies in town as well. The Northfield Haven Project, which is 15 units for adults with developmental disabilities. We finished that project up with the Northfield Haven Board last spring. It officially opened in the spring of last year. And we are almost at full capacity. I believe we have 1 apartment left. And they've already contacted TCD, and they want to look at maybe expanding that project and providing more housing because there's a need for that in our area. So that's kind of the housing update. However, like I've talked with Mark and Charlie and you guys at the last time that I updated you, we talked a lot about housing. But over the last 2 years, we've really been trying to focus more on our other 3 focus areas and less on housing. So you can tell a lot of those housing is helping developers and others. It's not necessarily TCD doing the housing projects. So I'll move on to workforce development on the next part. One of my favorite things that we've done at TCD since I've started is Career Connections of Western Nebraska. This is a group that was started probably 4 years ago by some local employers that were having issues attaining employees, retaining employees, attracting employees, those kinds of things. And so a group started basically, it was just a career pathways group a couple years ago. Since I started at TCD, we decided to become the backbone entity for Career Connections of Western Nebraska. And since then, we developed a strategic plan. And from that, we have done a survey of 6th through 12th graders at 22 of the 23 school districts in the Panhandle to figure out the motivators. Do they want to stay rural? Do they want to move away? What industries are they interested in? Do their local leaders engage them? Are they wanting to volunteer, start new businesses, those kinds of things? And from that information, we took their most interested industries and we created the career cabs, which are basically business and industry tours. So last November, we ended up taking over 650 10th grade students to 48 businesses in the Panhandle. So in the north, we actually broke it into 3 regions. So we had the North region, Central region, and South region. So we broke that up and took them to different businesses to give them hands-on, firsthand experience throughout the Panhandle. So our next step with that is internship program. So that was 10th graders. And now what are we going to do with 11th graders and 12th graders? Some of the larger schools like Scotts Bluff and Gearing, they already have internship programs, but some of the smaller, more rural schools do not. They don't have the capacity, they don't have enough staff. So we're working with, we're going to work with 8 school districts this next school year to develop 8 internship programs so that we can connect those students and businesses and schools together to be able to get that next step and have internships. And the main goal for Career Connections, there's 2 goals. One is to help retain our youth, to keep them here or have them move back after they graduate or start a family. And then the other piece of that is to help local employers have a workforce, create a pipeline to be able to fill these open jobs within Western Nebraska. The next piece that's really important with workforce development is childcare. There's a large gap in quality childcare for children all across Western Nebraska. So we work all the time with new businesses starting mostly in-home daycares, but we're also working with the local child care facility in the city of Gearing to try and double their capacity. So we're working with some architects on phased projects or project for their current facility to be able to double their capacity. Another thing that we do is campaigns. We did, probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, we helped the city of Gearing pass the LB 357 campaign, which got them $6 million for infrastructure over the next 10 years. And then we also just helped the city of Minutair pass a 1% sales tax just this last primary election cycle with a 70% yes vote for that 1% sales tax to be able to help Minutair revitalize their downtown infrastructure, those kinds of things. And then also we helped Minutair do a community garage sale just last month, which was a huge success. And then the last piece of this is we are in talks with the chamber on how we can better partner with the chamber, work better with them. You know, there's some overlap there. How can we work better with them? And then also we wouldn't mind talking to tourism, seeing if we can partner more with tourism as well. Moving into community development. So the EPIC tax that is potentially going to be on the ballot in November. We have done 3 info sessions on that at our Northfield building. And basically we are just getting speakers here on both sides to come talk to Western Nebraska residents to inform them about EPIC tax so that everyone can hear both sides and before November comes if it's on the ballot. WNED, Western Nebraska Economic Development, that's a regional economic development group. We have 12 members across the Panhandle. TCD facilitates those meetings, the agendas, everything like that. And we have been having work sessions, mostly on housing, marketing, workforce, and also one more, childcare. And so for the housing piece of it, the regional land bank is working through that, and so we are continuing to work on the regional land bank. Currently working on getting a board set in place so that we can start doing that, and then raising funds for that will be the next step after the board. Another piece of that is marketing. So we are doing more regional marketing as a group instead of going as just the city of Scotts Bluff, just the city of Gearing. We're going to expos as Western Nebraska. One of the things that was landed out of that was the Oikos project in Gearing. Those up to 300 houses, that came out of a NIFA housing expo that was in Lincoln through WNED. And let's see here, grants. We did just hire a grant writer on staff at TCD to do both in-house grants and grants for organizations and members of TCD. We are currently working on the RCRP, which is the Rural Community Recovery Program. We're working on that grant for both the city of Minutair and the city of Gearing. City of Gearing will be for over $1 million grant, and then city of Minutair will probably be about $1 million grant.
What's the grant used for?
So the grant, it's mostly used, it's for like facilities, so it'd be like a park, which is what Gearing's doing, and then community room is what Minutair's doing. So it's like a community facilities type grant.
Can I ask which park?
Yeah, Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail, just off by Guile Elementary. So, it'll be for the playground. And then the other one too is we've contacted the county about the Safe Streets grant. So Steve, our grant writer, is looking into that, and so we just need a point of contact for the county to keep working through that Safe Streets grant for the county as well.
Explain that a little more.
So the Safe Streets grant, I actually don't know that much about it. Charlie might know more about it, but our grant writer's digging into it and has contacted the county. I don't know too much about it. The money
What's the money used for?
Roads and Bridge.
Attaboy.
It would go to Road and Bridge.
That's what we need.
Yep. There you
That'd be
go.
great.
Safer streets, roads and bridges.
Keep it coming.
And then the next piece is, sorry, go ahead. The campaigns, yep, and then business retention, expansion, and attraction. So we continue to work with Global Solutions, GSLI, for business attraction. And basically what it is it's marketing campaign. So they send out emails about Western Nebraska, about our open sites and buildings, those kinds of things to businesses all across the country. And then they rank it based on engagement. So if they open the email, if they click on the email, if they click the contact us page, and then we go from there. Either we call them or we send them a gift box of some kind, those kinds of things. And then they also have a portal that we can go into where they have projects that are open. So it'll be like an expansion project or a new business or something that's looking to expand in the Midwest or the whole country, whatever. And then we submit proposals based on that, and basically would say if they're looking for a 25,000 square foot building, we take all the 25,000 square foot buildings, we put them in there, and we submit it to them on there. Two things, we have applied for a couple grants this year. Two of them we applied through USDA, and we just received one of them just last week, and another one the month before. One of those grants is the TAG grant. It's an Energy Technical Assistance Grant, which basically USDA. It's a $250,000 grant, which allows us to work with businesses on their SAM registrations, which provides it for free for the businesses. And then also REAP applications, which is Rural Energy Program of America, which is basically grant money through USDA to do like solar power projects, solar power for your pivots, those kinds of things. And then also allows for free energy assessments and audits for businesses in western Nebraska and all of Nebraska actually as well. So that's a grant we just received. And then the RBDG grant, which is Rural Business Development Grant, we just received that last week. And that actually is a grant that built kind of like the Rural Workforce Housing Grant. It creates a small business revolving loan fund. So we went to all the banks or most of the local banks and told them what our thoughts were with this. And basically it is kind of like a gap financing kind of thing. So if an entrepreneur goes to the bank and they don't have enough collateral, they don't have good enough credit, and the bank says, hey, we'll give you 50%, they could come to us and we could potentially give them the other 50%. So it's just another option for entrepreneurs and small businesses to get some money to start a business or to expand a business. And then stats. So I just want to kind of give you our stats for the last year and a half. So we offered 949 free business trainings on our website in both English and Spanish. We have done 162 business advisements or consultations. 76 of those were with business startups. 86 of those were with business expansions. And then we also supported 208 businesses with TCD business packets. So when a business starts and they file their LLC or their sole proprietorship or whatever, we'll send them a business folder, which basically has all the resources in there like Nebraska Business Development Center, Center for Rural Affairs, PAD, anything that TCD, all those kinds of things in there so that the businesses know that they're not alone, they have help. There's a lot of resources out there for them. And that's how we actually get a lot of our business advisements is they get that, they give us a call, they come in, talk with us. And then also our LOIS, which is Location One Information Systems. That is kind of like that's where we list commercial sites and buildings. So we work with the local realtor boards, Champion Realty, others, and we get commercial property sent our way. And so we have in the last year and a half have put 52 new commercial buildings and sites on there as well. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up, talking about tourism, is I was a part of some of that huddle up strategic planning. I went to the final presentation and those kinds of things, and that's somewhere where TCD could potentially help if that strategic plan, you need help moving that forward or those kinds of things. TCD would be happy to help with those kinds of things as well. And then last thing, November, we'll have our annual meeting. We have it every November, and I'd like to invite the county commissioners to attend that. We'll send out invitations as we get closer as well. So, any questions?
Yeah, on that 52 commercial buildings now, you
Yep.
said you listed those, or are those for available, or what do you mean by you?
Yeah, available. Yep. So those would be available, and then some of them are full already. Some of them are still on there, but yeah, that's just basically listing. So LOIS is a national search engine. So mostly site selectors from all over the country will search LOIS, and then they'll put in what they're looking for, and it'll give them results. And
So that's how many commercial buildings we have that are empty right now?
no, we have more than that's how many we've listed this year. There's more. That's how many new ones we've listed.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's new ones. So that's
pretty-
not. So there's more on there. That's just new.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Without, and I know you can't, without giving any names or any specifics, do you have any good news as far as anything on the horizon?
Yes.
coming
As
to
far
our
as like
area?
business attraction, we do. We are working with 2 larger projects right now. We're trying to land them. They're looking really, really good. But hopefully we can make them happen. And we've worked with others in the past, some that have come and gone. But we are currently working with 2 larger projects that we're hopeful that it'll work, and they're looking really well. So, and would be great for the area. So,
Okay.
but yeah, we can't really say anything about
No,
them.
I-
But
we
they
know-
are great.
we
They're
know
great
that.
projects for sure. A
We
lot
know
of
that.
job creation, filling some of this available sites and buildings as well. So,
Okay.
but yeah, lots
Anybody
of fun.
else have
and-
any questions for Jordan?
I'd like to comment on TCD all the time. don't
Yeah, I know. I knew it. I was like, Mark's
Yeah,
gonna say
so Mark
something.
will say something. So tell me, as you know,
I've had a concern about, the focus being housing,
Yes.
but I am pleased that you brought a lot more than just housing tonight to this discussion. So tell me a little bit about the houses across from City Hall.
Mm-hmm.
How is TCD involved with that?
So that's basically, we're just a partial funder for it through rural workforce housing. So they applied for the rural workforce housing funding, and they got a loan through rural workforce housing for that project.
Okay,
So that's our involvement with that. So, and just like all the other ones, so like 12 new constructions and 18 rehabs, basically we're a partial funder for that. So they apply, they give us the plans, the layouts, the cost estimates, and then it goes to a committee, and the committee decides yay or nay. And so that's our involvement with that
You're-
project.
again, a secondary lender to
Yes.
the project,
Yep. Yep.
okay? What about the, small houses or that we had been talked about in Gearing? Is that process moving further?
The container houses, yeah. So that they actually applied for the rural workforce housing money as well, but we basically took that money back and are using it on something else because they pushed it down the road and are going to do it later on. Is what I've heard most recently. Is it's basically just been pushed back.
Okay. The child care, there's been lots of talk about that, and
Correct.
I
yes.
had become convinced at some point that it is a serious issue and a somewhat of a problem. Now I know the Gearing Schools was helping somewhat in the process of the facility here, and
Yep.
then now with the city or the Scotts Bluff Schools, I should say, purchasing the SWBC building, talking about that being child care, or at least part of that being child care area.
Yep.
Is that gonna open up more spots?
That it'll help. So the thing is, so like what the schools are doing is mostly geared towards preschool. So you're talking over 4 to 5 to 6 years old. The biggest problem is 0 to 3. So infants to 3-year-old is the biggest problem right now. So that's kind of the gap that we really need to focus on and do and work towards. The Scotts Bluff project will help with that, but there's still going to be a gap
The young ones.
that needs filled. And like the Gearing school districts, what they're doing is mostly preschool type stuff. So it helps, but it's at 0 to 3 that's the big problem.
Just this evening, we had a lady standing right here talking about the infant care
Yep.
and
Yep.
needing to find someone to be able to
Yep.
to look at infants.
Yeah, and it's tough, and I mean it's around the whole country. I don't know what happened with COVID, but COVID just made housing and childcare and everything just be an issue. But yeah, I've heard many stories of someone, like for a good example is a teacher that moves here and gets a 1-year contract, and then they can't find a house and they can't find childcare. After their 1-year contract, they're gone. They're moving somewhere else where they can get childcare and where they can get a house. And that's the problem that we're facing is where we need a place for them to live. We need a place for them to bring their child. And then even the Career Connections of Western Nebraska, 49% of the almost 4,000 students that we surveyed said that they would be willing to live here in their hometown now or in the future. So half of those students said they would live here, but when they graduate or when they come back, where are they going to live? Where are their kids going to go to daycare, childcare? That's the problem. So we can help them, show them the opportunities and show them jobs, but if there's nowhere for them to live and no childcare, it's hard.
Again, those duplexes just built, right?
Yep.
Just built.
Yep.
And it goes back to what I've told you for a long, long time.
Yep.
And that's that you can't build them and make them affordable.
Yeah.
You can't do new construction and make them affordable. And that's what you're finding right there.
Yep.
And that's the case.
Yep.
And, maybe there's the talk of some apartments over here in Gearing and maybe, more multifamily
Sure.
type stuff.
Yep.
could possibly make some of that happen, but.
Yeah, and that's
to
what-
think- if you think you can build a single-family house or a duplex
Mm-hmm.
and make that work for most people to be affordable,
Yeah.
can't,
Well, and that's what
and that's what that's showing.
we've been, well, I mean, I've been in contact with different companies, mostly Nebraska companies out of Lincoln, to try and do apartment complexes because that could be affordable.
A little more viable.
Higher density, multifamily. The problem that we've run into every single time is workforce. To be able to mobilize their workforce and bring them here is expensive. So they look to local subcontractors, local plumbers, local electricians, and they can't find them, or they're too busy, or they don't have enough staff, or they can't work on a project that size. So that's what we run into.
I was surprised that, the builder there on those duplexes did mention that.
Yep.
And said that it was hard for them to find labor or affordable labor.
Yep.
And so I find that a little bit interesting. I believe that if the projects are to be built, the labor will come, is what I would suggest, and that if there's jobs to be had here, labor will come to fill those jobs. Those just, confirmed to me what I thought, and then what it appears is that, again, through workforce development or whatever, it's gonna have to kind of buy down the rate,
Sure.
buy down the price of the house to help make it work. And, I guess as long as the government's willing to give money, I guess we can try and help. But the fact is, in the open market, in the real market,
Yep.
that don't happen.
Yep. No,
Yeah.
I agree. Yep. Yep.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting times, and housing is hard, and workforce is difficult, and we're working through it. And the thing is, I mean, 12 new construction, 18 rehabs, and the rehabs are doing and actually since spring hit, the rehabs are selling really, really well. They've been selling quickly and well, and we've been getting that money revolved back into the fund so that we can put it back out. But those are more affordable houses.
we
You're
have to
talking
make it work.
140,000 to, and we actually had up to 325,000 for some of those
Instead of
rehabs.
285,
Yeah,
right.
but the $325,000 houses are like 5-bedroom houses,
I'm-
so not
right.
2-bedroom.
But again-
So, yep,
Sometimes people want more than they can afford
yep,
and call it affordable.
yeah,
Right.
yep, definitely.
So, that's what happens sometimes. So, I do appreciate what you've been doing in the workforce development, particularly in the vocational areas with our high school students. If we can grow our, workforce that can work here,
Correct.
and, between the schools and TCD, help grow those opportunities, I support that, and I think that's one of the best things going for TCD.
Well, and one of the
I
cool
appreciate
things
it.
that came out of that was, I don't know the exact number, but it was about a quarter. It was about 25, maybe 23%, somewhere in there, of the 4,000 students were interested in the trades.
Good.
So it was good to see the trades, because there's a huge gap in the trades, plumbers,
right.
electricians, all
That's
that.
actually a nationwide.
So,
Right,
Is it?
I
Yeah.
think 27% is the number I
Wow,
heard that
that's
were,
great.
that were either not going to
Yep.
go to a trade school or were going to learn a trade
yeah.
and not go to some expensive college
Yeah.
somewhere.
Well, so our numbers as far as college goes is 65% of students surveyed were going to go to college. 65%. 5 years ago, that was about 75%. So it's dropped down about 10% in 5 years. And the number of people who were going straight into the workforce was about 13%. And then the rest would be like military or trade schools or those kinds of things.
Well,
But-
and I think, I'm not a college graduate, I'm the worst one to talk about it. But I think now the trend is unless you've got a specific idea of what you're going to do when you're finished with your 4 years.
Yeah.
Just to come out with a piece of paper in your hand and say,
Yeah.
well, I've got this.
Yeah.
And I was talking, I think Russ, we were talking here of how many college graduates that we're hiring to operate our motor graders. 'Cause
Oh,
there's-
sure.
There's nothing else.
Yep.
And which is fine, there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that.
Yeah.
But if you don't go in with a specific something,
Yep.
you've spent a ton of money
Yep.
and you still don't have anything to show
We
for
got
it
student
when
loan
you're
debt to pay
finished.
now too.
And
Yeah.
it's, the trend, it's starting to turn. We went through this about 20 years, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
where kids were getting more into the trades than they were the other
Oh, Well,
stuff.
and the other thing too is about 25% of those students were interested in health services, and
Yeah.
we've got hospitals around here that really, really need employees. And so the next step is how do you connect those dots and
Yeah.
get those students to stay here, come
Well-
back, and fill those jobs here.
But I think what's happening, this was back in the days when you had a wood shop and a welding shop or
Oh, yeah.
ag shop.
Uh-huh.
And now that is advanced into some very technological.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
You know
I
what I
you,
wanna
I know what
say.
you mean.
You know what I want to say. It's been a long day.
Yeah,
We
they're
understand.
good.
But through our school districts are really stepping up to the plate.
Yes.
And doing through the community college.
Yep.
On all of their trade schools, the things they're doing. I think it's making these kids think a little bit. I think I like that.
And one of the cool things about the Career Connections is it's not just one school doing this. We're working with all 23 school districts in the 11 county panhandle. Every single one of them bought into Career Connections. Every single one of them's working with us. We're networking with all these students. So it's been a huge regional success that we're
Yeah.
working on. And we hope to continue to grow it.
Two things.
Yep.
I'll be short. The grant writer position, I think that's really good, and I think that can help us here. And, we need to take advantage of what's going on there and the things that you've offered for that. And then one other question I always like to ask, what is community development to you?
Community
Why don't you
development to me.
define that for me?
That's a good question. So community development, honestly, community development to me is, well, the things that I had here was Epic Tax, WNED, grants, campaigns, and chamber. So when we're looking at community development, it's more of our work with the cities more generally instead of like the specific businesses. So it's working with the town of Minnetonka, working with the city of Scotts Bluff, working with the city of Gearing. So that's more what falls into our community development, is more the bigger picture, well-being of the citizens of Western Nebraska is kind
It's
of what.
it's
community
using what you have and making it better.
yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, like the
That's what community
like the park,
development is.
doing the grant for the park,
Yeah.
doing the grant for the community room, those kinds of things. So more of a bigger scale thing, not necessarily. And I mean, a lot can fit into community development. It could. And the other thing about the grant writer position too is we hope that we can grow the grant writing thing enough that we can hire multiple grant writers. We would love to be able to bring enough money into Western Nebraska that we can hire multiple grant writers and keep them busy and just keep money coming to Western Nebraska. That's the goal. And TCD's always been good at grant writing for the last 20 years. But we want to keep a focus on that, and we want to bring more money into Western Nebraska. And hopefully, if these 2 grants pass, that'll be another $2 million coming into Western Nebraska to better our community. So, but thank you. I appreciate your guys' comments and the support.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Yeah, regarding those townhomes across from City Hall.
Yep.
When does that, workforce loan get, paid back?
They have 2 years, so it'd be, I think it's next May of 2025.
And that's whether they sell or not?
Yes, that would be, yep, they would have to start paying back principal and interest payments after that, or, yeah, if they don't sell, principal and interest payments, if they do sell, they pay it back, basically is how it works.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So since they're completed now,
Mm-hmm.
why doesn't TCD require them to go get a loan from a bank, from a private lender?
That's where we get to that point where we're at the 2-year mark
Okay.
when we want them to refinance. Because the whole purpose of it, and we do that with our rehabs. So typically we give 15 months. And if you don't sell it within 15 months, you'll have to start paying principal and interest. But we do, our goal is to have them refinance, either sell it or refinance and pay it back. And we have had some that have been doing that. They refinance and pay it back, basically. So, yeah. So we've had a couple that have had to do that.
But this particular project is a 2-year
Yeah, 2-year. Yeah.
lead on that.
So I think that's May of 2025, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to double check, but.
So that basically that money isn't available for anybody else until
Not yet.
until that refinancing happens.
Yep, and it's paid back, correct.
So was this are all new builds the 24-month?
No, it depends, it's case by case.
Case by case.
Typically, they're 15 months, but his proposal to us was 24 months,
Okay.
and we accepted it, so. But yeah, most of our loans are 15-month loans, so. And this was a bigger project and those kinds of things. Most of them, like I said, it's a single family house that's a rehab. It should be a quicker fix, quicker flip, those kinds of things. We do have, the cool thing about it is we have been able, a lot of these projects like the rehabs have been able, it's kind of like an entrepreneur kind of thing. You've got someone who's interested in doing these kinds of things. They have some history with it. Maybe the bank won't give them a loan. They come to us, we help them, and now we have some of them that have flipped 3 houses in our program. We've got someone right now who's flipping 2 houses in our program. And actually, we have one that he moved here from Colorado, moved his entire family here from Colorado because of our rural workforce housing fund. So he's working on 2 houses in Gearing right now, and literally moved here from Colorado. So, and he's doing really well. He's got his house, his first house is almost done, and I think he's only started like 3 or 4 months ago. So it's going really, really well. So it's been a huge success for the rural workforce housing program. And I think the state's going to be, potentially going to be putting more money out there for rural workforce housing in the future. So there's, potential to get some more money too. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Not, Jordan, thank you for the update.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you guys. Have a good evening.
Alrighty.
Do you have a card?
All right, next up, Public Defender's Office update. Mike Meister, Jessica Myers, Lauren Newell, and Justin Huber.
Good evening.
How are you?
This is the third meeting in a row I've been here, so it's good to see you.
That's okay. You can come to as many as you like. There's no limit on it, Mike.
Jessica and Justin send their regards. Jessica had a meeting with HHS tonight. Justin's on vacation. I did bring Lauren Newell from our office. You didn't get a chance to meet her last week because she was on vacation, but she's now back and working. And we put together a small PowerPoint presentation for you, and if I can figure out how all these gizmos work, it should go pretty good.
You'll get it done.
So this is who we are and what we do. I'm the interim public defender, of course. Jessica's deputy public defender. Justin is a deputy public defender. And Lauren is the newest deputy public defender. We've gone to Creighton University, Nebraska School of Law, and University of Wyoming. And all three schools are being contacted by us trying to find other folks who might be interested in come out. And then we have a little bit of personal information on the bottom for you to enjoy. And what Lauren doesn't say on there, she just got back from Italy where her and her husband Patrick, who's the choral teacher at the college, were teaching teachers how to teach singing in the technique that they do. So it was a working vacation for her. Office staff consists of Carol Cardona, who's the office manager and is a certified paralegal. Ann Anderson is legal assistant, and Rachel Langer is a legal assistant. We put Carol with Lauren and Justin. They're our 2 newest attorneys, and she can kind of keep track on them if she needs to bring something to my attention or Jess's attention. And then Ann and Rachel each take care of our stuff. We are the only office in the county that is grounded in the U.S. Constitution. And that's why we exist. We exist because in the 6th Amendment of the United States Constitution, all prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to and have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So in essence, what the taxpayers do in the United States is they fund public defenders to provide defense for indigent clients who can't otherwise afford an attorney. And that's the purpose of our organization primarily. Our other purpose is to keep counties from doing things like happened in Gage County a few years back, so they don't end up in that kind of a situation. This chart shows the typical process of a criminal case in the state of Nebraska. And it's a felony case. That's the statute that requires the public defender's office to take all indigent felony defendants at any criminal stage. Part of the reason you'll see the county attorney's office has more appearances than the public defender's office is because we don't get appointed until the 3rd step in the process. So what happens is a person is arrested. When they're arraigned in county court, the county attorney is there. At that point, on a felony case, the judge binds that case to a preliminary hearing, and at that point looks at their financial situation and appoints one of us to represent them. Yes?
Why is it so long, at least number 3 in the process? Why wouldn't they be represented, let's say, at the arraignment?
That's a good question. And it's just that's the way it's set up in the statute, Ken. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Really? Okay.
So, and the next slide will be misdemeanors, and it's a little bit different. But at the arraignment in county court, the person is brought before the judge. In a misdemeanor case, they're asked how to plea. In a felony case, they're simply told what their rights are, what they're facing as far as charges, and they're asked if they can afford an attorney. If they can't, then typically we are appointed. At that point, we move into the preliminary hearing stage. Once in a while, I had one today that was dismissed at the preliminary hearing stage. If not dismissed there, it's bound over. If it's bound over, then we go to a district court arraignment. It's usually about a week later. The district court arraignment happens whether we waive that hearing or have that hearing. One of the things that I've been working to get the county attorney's office involved with is trying to get us police reports right after the arraignment. If they can get us a police report after arraignment, in other words, they go upstairs with their 20 files they dropped on us today, and they say, here's these 20 cases we just appointed the public defender's office, send them the police reports. That gives us an opportunity to look at those reports to see if we want to have a preliminary hearing or if we want to waive that hearing.
So, when do you get those police reports?
Typically, right now, we don't get those police reports until after the district court arraignment.
Okay,
So we have that 2-week period in there with the preliminary hearing. It takes about a week to get that done, and then it takes about another week to get to the arraignment. And that's just a scheduling thing with the judges. Now, one of the problems that we see in the preliminary hearing, and when I say we, I'm going to talk about taxpayers for a second. When we do a preliminary hearing, you have a county attorney, a deputy public defender, a judge, a court reporter, and the witness, which is usually either one officer or 2 officers, depending on what the case is about. Sometimes there's more people involved, but usually that's typical, 6. That's 6 man-hours that are taken out of everybody's day to show up, to look at the judge and say, we'll waive the hearing, Your Honor. We can waive that hearing in writing way before that and save 6 man-hours for the different agencies that are involved. So it's kind of important to get us that police report early, because that tells us right out of the chute, is this a case we need a preliminary hearing because the evidence is not good? Or is it a case where we can waive the preliminary hearing, move right into arraignment, and possibly even start talking some kind of a plea discussion with the county attorney at that point? So the whole process is what costs the taxpayers money. And typically, a misdemeanor process takes about 45 days. A felony process right now is taking us about 133 days. I think we can get the misdemeanor process under 30 days. And as a first step, I think we can get the felony process under 100. And then I think we can get that process down again. But the first goal needs to get us, we need to move in steps with the felonies because they just work a little different. Yeah, Charlie.
So how do you speed that up?
Well, one way is to get the waivers done quicker, because we can actually waive in writing the preliminary hearings, and we can actually waive in writing the district court arraignments if it's appropriate. And so what we do is we eliminate about 3 weeks of processing right in that window over there just below our yellow box that says where we're appointed. Now, some of the stuff has to take a certain length of time. We can't avoid that. If it's going to trial, the judges typically set the pretrial conference out a couple of months. But if we can start plea discussions sooner, a lot of times we can have a person pled out before the pretrial ever happens.
So is this
Yes.
an issue here in Scotts Bluff County? Is this an issue across the state? Are other counties moving through this more efficiently than Scotts Bluff County?
Yes, different counties do it different ways. Some are more efficient than others. Some are less efficient. If you only got one county attorney and you're relying on, I'll take Kimball County as an example. Most of the attorneys that are appointed in Kimball County travel down from Scotts Bluff. And so that builds some time into their processing. Plus you have a judge who's covering Kimball from Sydney. So that covers, so the smaller counties, it's actually a slower process. I wouldn't say it's less efficient. It's efficient for them, okay, because it's the timing of when judges are riding circuit. But if you go like to Douglas County or Lancaster County, where everybody's on site doing everything all at the same time, it just clicks along like clockwork. I don't know how many of you remember Glenn Kammerer when he was county judge. He used to take vacation, that's what he called it, and go down and work in Douglas County or Lancaster County, because he said he could stand there and somebody would help him put his robe on, and somebody else would carry his files into court, and somebody else would do this for him, somebody else would do that for him, and he just had to sit and be a judge. And then he looked at it and said, can you imagine if I told Joni Fisher, hey, why don't you carry my files into my courtroom? What she'd do to me? we all laughed. So
Can
Can some of that be done like via Zoom, or is that a person-to-person kind of
Well,
thing?
actually, it's interesting, because right now what we're dealing with in the district court is almost every, and I think some of the attorneys in the room can verify this, almost all the people in jail we're doing by Zoom. In the county court, everybody's being loaded up into transports and brought over. And it'd be nice if we did one or the other. And I don't know why we're doing them differently that way, but we are. But Zooms are allowed if both parties agree to it. And on most minor pretrial stuff, that's not an issue. Most of us agree to it and do it that way. But it doesn't really save us time. It just allows us to get the hearing heard without having to continue it out, 2 weeks later when everybody can be there. After the arraignment, we move to the pretrial conference. At that point, dismissed is kind of a misnomer. What happens is some charges are dismissed, and usually a plea is taken. So a person is pleading to something, but we're dismissing charges to give, it's kind of the quid pro quo, right? I'll plead guilty to this if you give up these charges. And so there's some plea negotiation and structure that goes on. So a plea is taken, and then you move into sentencing. Sentencing is typically about 6 weeks from the plea. Unfortunately, we've not figured out a way to speed that up, and that's partially because probation has to do an interview. There's some other processing that has to go on that's outside the court and the public defender and county attorney's handling. We got to get that stuff. But then we handle the sentencing, and that case is finished. If not, we do a pretrial conference. At the pretrial conference, sometimes the defendant will choose a bench trial if the issue is purely legal. We think the evidence should have been suppressed, as an example, and the judge ruled against us. A lot of times we'll do a bench trial on what's called stipulated facts. Everybody agrees these are the facts. We're just saying that legally this is not what should have happened. And so what that happens is a bench trial, the judge rules on it, and then an appeal is taken. Another difference between the county attorney's office and the public defender's office is we're responsible for writing the appeals. The county attorney does not. Those all go to the attorney general's office.
Is that,
Yes.
that dismissed case under the bench trial, is that a misnomer as well, that it's not truly a dismiss, that's gonna be a plea bargain as well?
No, that one down there, that's a win for
That's a
my
win.
office. Yeah, that's an acquittal.
The
That's
other
what,
one
it should
the
say
other one should
acquittal.
be- That other line, that one should be tied in and back into district court if it's gonna move over to arraignment then, huh?
Yeah, this chart, everything happens in district court except for the first three things.
Well, you said the dismissed over there wasn't the end, then there was a plea below that, you don't have any plea or anything tied to it.
Now, if it's dismissed at the preliminary hearing, county judges determine there's not enough evidence to support the charge.
Okay, I thought
and
you said that was,
dismisses it.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, this one should say acquittal. That's probably what's confusing about it. So this is a misdemeanor. We are required to take indigent persons in misdemeanor cases when we are appointed by the court. And so our office spends a lot of time talking with the county court judges. They're the first step in the process as far as our appointment goes. And depending on our caseloads and what's going on, the county judges, a lot of times, that's where you get most of your independent lawyers being appointed, private lawyers being appointed. The process still is kind of the same. There's arraignment in county court. At the arraignment, a lot of times a client or a defendant will plead guilty right then. Say it's a drug paraphernalia case or something of that nature that's not a felony. They'll plead guilty right there, and that'll end the case, and we'll never get appointed on that case. Or a private lawyer will never get appointed on that case. If they plead not guilty, then we go through the same process. Do you have any money? What do you have? They provide a financial affidavit, and then we are appointed. If we are appointed, we take the case through a pretrial hearing. Again, it's dismissed. There's a plea. We either have a bench trial or we have a docket call, and that will depend on the nature of the charge, how high the punishment is for it, whether they're entitled to a 6-person jury or not. If they're not entitled to a jury, or for some reason we failed to ask for a jury, the trial's done by the judge, and then the judge is, as they say, judge, sentencing, and executioner, does it all. And the other thing that we are required to take by law are mental health board cases. For some reason lately, we've had a rash of mental health board cases. I think we've had 3 in the last 2 weeks. Again, the same process. At this time, the county attorney files his petition in the district court. We're appointed immediately in that situation. Hearings are typically held up at Region West Medical Center. And lately, most of them have resulted in a treatment order from the Board of Mental Health and an emergency protective custody order.
Who is the Board of Mental Health, Mike?
Jerry Ostick is the presiding officer. He's an attorney with Douglas Kelly. And then there are two, one's a psychiatric nurse. I can't think.
I can tell you who the board is on that. The other board members are Carol Center, Mark Center, Katie Carazales, and,
Krista Randall.
Yeah, Chris, that's it, yeah. Okay.
Only
Okay.
because of you, Catherine.
Yeah, and that's, so those are the folks, they'll sit, three of those people will sit.
I see.
And take, it's very open and kind of informal. An attorney is assigned because the person's probably gonna be confined. And anytime we try to confine someone in the United States, we make sure there's an attorney there making sure their rights are protected. And generally speaking, like, as I said, these folks are pretty sick, they're schizophrenic, they're other
Yeah.
mental health disorders, and frankly, the mental health board is a much better place for a lot of these folks than the jail, which unfortunately we get a lot of folks in the jail that have the same problem. And that the criminal justice system is not set up to take care of mental health problems. It just isn't. But we're forcing around peg around peg in a square hole, and it's what we deal with. I've got 3 clients right now that have been sent down to Lincoln Regional Center because they're not competent to stand trial. So it's just, it's a tough situation. It's not a situation we're gonna solve, this commission's gonna solve.
Yeah.
So it's just what it is. Currently, this is our caseload, although it's not accurate as of today because we just picked up 20 more cases on my way over here. American Bar Association in 1973 recommended no more than 150 felonies or 400 misdemeanors or 200 juvenile cases within a single year. Currently, those are the numbers that we're running. The open case weight is 2,668.5 hours to handle the cases we have. The 42 inactive cases include the folks I just talked about that are down at LRC. It also talks about people who have absconded and disappeared, and we're trying to find them. There's a warrant out for them. We move them into an inactive status so it doesn't skew our caseloads. So when we're talking to the judges, they can specifically know what we're doing. You'll notice that, and I gave Jess a hard time. I said, look, you're making us look really bad because you got the biggest caseload in there. And she says, yeah, but you got more felonies. I said, yeah, but you're picking up more misdemeanors. I said, so out of that 20, make sure you give me my fair share. She said she'd do that. So, tomorrow we'll all have a stack of cases to start going through and figuring out what we're gonna do with them. You'll notice that Lawrence picked up the majority of the misdemeanors. Part of that, she's a new lawyer. Misdemeanors are less risky for folks because they're not looking at prison time usually. Jail time, yes. Prison time, no. And it's also a good way for her to cut her teeth. You'll see she's picking up 19 felonies now because we felt she's moving along quite nicely. We are no longer at full strength, but we're going to continue to take the misdemeanor appointments right now because we're fairly confident we can handle it. That may change in the next few months. Right now, that's our plan, is to stay doing what we're doing. The other thing we do with probation violations, these are people who hadn't figured it out the first time. They got a deal to get on probation. They either are just struggling with it or they just don't care. Those that just don't care get resentenced. Those that are struggling with it, we try to figure out another way to maybe give them a second chance. Our job is to make sure that their story is in front of the judge correctly so the judge can make a valid decision, or a sound decision, I should say, on what's going to be best for that person. Yes, sir.
So, that last slide is just a snapshot in time,
Correct.
and then the sidebar there said, American Bar Association says no more than 150 felonies or 400 misdemeanors or 200 juvenile cases. So, if this is what's currently open, how many felonies does that translate to over a 12-month period?
So these numbers here are annual numbers.
Right.
Okay. These number here are our current numbers.
Right.
So if we go over here, July 1st, 2023 to 2024, we opened 874 cases. 509 of those were felonies, 283 were misdemeanors, and 60 of those were probation violations. So if you go back, 150 felonies or 400 misdemeanors, we're already beating that with 509 felonies, 283 misdemeanors.
So, so previous slide one more time.
Sure.
So that lower right-hand corner, that's not per lawyer, that's per lawyer, per lawyer, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yes,
So then the next slide, this is for the whole office.
correct. Which we've had 4 to 5 attorneys over the course of this year, more 4 than 5. Because let's see, I came in, Lauren was not in yet. She swore into the bar in September of 23, so she's been practicing that long. And then Paul left in May. So we've had more 4 attorneys in 23 than we did, or this period of time, more 4 than 5. But we did get 5, so we started taking the misdemeanors. But right now, the way things are working, we feel pretty good about it.
So you're not quite over the recommendation from a previous slide, but you're bumping up.
We're
close to
bumping
it.
right up on it, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
These are reasons that we withdraw from cases. It gets kind of technical. Basically, imagine 2 of you in the car, and you're gonna be pointing your fingers at each other when the officers are done with you. We can represent one of you, but we can't represent both of you. Because we'd have to say, well, which one are we gonna sacrifice? And anytime you get in a situation where you gotta sacrifice one client for another, that's a bad situation to be in. So that creates the conflict, we have to step away. That's the easiest conflict to explain. Some of the others get more complicated, especially in Scotts Bluff County where we have a lot of frequent flyers, as we like to call them. Because you'll have, last Monday, these 2 guys were in a car. They both bailed out. The next Monday, 3 of them were in the car, and 2 of them were the same 2 that were in this car. And then you get somebody else, and then all of a sudden you got a witness. And so part of the reason we want the police reports too is it allows us to figure out that conflict quicker. So we're not sitting on a case. This happened recently where a person got bounced and bounced and bounced and bounced. I think it took her 6 weeks to get an attorney finally appointed to her. Because as people were getting information, they realized, I got a conflict. Oh wait, I got a conflict. Oh wait, I got a conflict. And worked her down the lines. I think she ended up finally getting somebody on the 5th appointment. And that's just the nature of what we have, which is frustrating. These are all just a couple other reasons that we have to take a conflict and withdraw from the case. We withdraw from less than 5% of the cases. So that's pretty good. And that's represents duties of former clients. We fudge, I will be totally honest with you, we fudge on this one a lot. Just because the nature of the area. If we did a pure look at this, we probably wouldn't have any work to do because of all the former clients that we've had that are in conflict with another former client that are in conflict with another former client. So this one, we do fudge a little bit and we go case by case instead of client by client. Kyle can't get away with that. And then the imputation is if one of us is conflicted, we're all conflicted. We also may fudge a little on that. Part of that was because I was in the county attorney's office for a couple of months. Prior to that, I was at legal aid for a few months. And we had a client came through and they looked at me and I picked up the file and went, I can't take this one. And they said, why not? I said, because I was opposed to him in a child termination case, parental termination case. And they said, oh. So then the question was, well, if you're disqualified, can we take it? And we sat around and talked about it and decided the old rule was you built a Chinese wall around me and you didn't talk to me about that case. And that's what we do because practically that's what we need to do in this county. Now, if I were to get reported on that, I would probably get slapped on the hand and told don't do that. We'd all say, we understand. It probably would not be a public reprimand, but it would definitely be a reprimand because it's technically a violation of our ethics rules. But it does meet the needs of the community that we serve. Here's a big question you guys ask a lot. We don't take juvenile cases. Honestly, this is the oddest thing to happen because right before Paul left or told us he was leaving, Jess and I were looking at taking some juvenile 1C cases. You will hear lawyers refer to juvenile cases as 1C case or a 3A case. A 3A case is a child abuse neglect case, whole family's involved, parents are involved. Those are the ones that cost you the most money because they're appointing all kinds of lawyers to handle everybody's rights. We do not take those because we are not trained to do those. We are not involved in that kind of stuff, but we would take the 1C cases. 1C cases are when kids under the age of 17 commit crimes. So we were getting geared up to start doing those, and then we ran into Paul left, and all of a sudden we were back at 4. So we're still looking at that, but we're not prepared to jump at that yet. The other thing, and this is interesting, and somebody may want to reach out to Legal Aid of Nebraska, they have a program in Lancaster County where they take they have a whole section of just juvenile lawyers. And I was trying to bring that program out here to help with some of the caseload for Scotts Bluff County. They went a different direction. It wasn't on that issue though. And I was asked to no longer be part of the organization, and I moved on. But I think it's a valid organization. It'd be a good organization to approach and discuss this because it is something they do it well, and it would save the taxpayers a lot of money in Scotts Bluff County. So I throw that out to you. But 1C case, we get fully staffed, we should be able to do 1Cs pretty easy. We just, at this point, we just can't do the 3As. We're just not set up. We don't have the knowledge to do it. Frankly, we don't have what's the word I'm looking for? The nice person who's polite with people, because sometimes we have to be firm with our clients. That's not us. So
is someone, local outside attorneys doing those?
yeah, Rhonda Flower does quite a few as a guardian ad litem as an example. She'll also pick up a parent once in a while. I think Allie Witkowski's doing some. Bill Madeline is doing a few. Trying to think of who else I've seen. There's a couple other folks. Lynn Tabor's doing some. So there are local folks who are doing them on a regular basis. I know Tabor, I think, is doing them partially under a contract with the county, which saves the county costs. So these are things differently that I've enacted since Paul left. We started the trial period of weekly office hours. We met with jail staff last week, and all of us are in agreement this is working great. It's working a little too great because we're not having enough time to get something discussed with the client before we see the client again. So it's kind of like, hi, Mark, saw you last week, got nothing to talk to you about this week, but it's good to see you. And so what we're thinking about doing is doing it every other week. And then what we also found out from jail staff is we thought they were requiring me to, if Mike called to make appointment, Mike showed up. That's not what they're gonna require us to do. They're gonna say the public defender's office has these 2 hours. And that's gonna help our office tremendously because we can pick and choose who runs over to the courthouse or over to the jail and takes care of folks. So that is working very, very well so far, and we think it'll keep working great. Some of the faster case resolution I talked about, we're doing some other things. One of those things, again, is getting the county attorney's office to get us those police reports as quickly as they can.
Is that where it's hung up at, or?
That's where a lot of the initial time is built, is not getting a police report. If I don't have a police report, I have to go to the preliminary hearing because I have to find out what's going on. If I get there and my client says I did it, and I told him I did it, then it's like, well, why are we doing this? Let's waive. And we waive. But now what we've done is wasted everybody's time because they're all here.
If you would have known that ahead of time.
If I'd known that ahead of time, we'd have them sign a waiver, and we'd already be on our way to arraignment. So we'd eliminate 2 weeks in that process, right out of the chute. And I would think, I worked up there for a couple of months. I think you could assign a person to say, here's the cases that were arraigned today, here's the public defender's appointments, send in the police reports. and they should be able to just send us the police reports. And that will eliminate about 2 weeks of processing time on a case. Assuming we don't have to do a preliminary hearing on the case. The other thing we've been doing, and this was Jess's idea, and I applaud her for it, we've been bringing in service providers. So we talked to the BSO, we've talked to adult probation, we've talked to adult diversion. So we're trying to educate us, the attorneys, on the availability of things to our clients that we can offer. I even talked with, one of the things I did when I was in the Army is I started a domestic violence program with my cops and our social workers, and we started to take those cases where it was like a failing marriage or a couple who didn't know how to fight correctly, getting the pushing and shoving and arguing. I'm not talking about the beatings. Okay? I'm not talking about those. But back in the old days, there used to be a drunk tank. You took a guy, you stuck him in a drunk tank, he sobered up, you let him out in the morning, and you just gave him his ticket and told him when to show up in court. I think that with a domestic violence situation that justifies and warrants it, you get the cool down period overnight, then you hand them the thing on the way out the door that says this is diversion. If you want a diversion, you go to the courthouse, you sign up for it. They're going to get you conflict management class, they're going to get you an anger management class, and they're going to get you some family counseling. And then if we see you again, you get one shot at it. And if we see you again, you're done. But I think we could eliminate a lot of cases where mom or dad is sitting in jail for 15, 20, 30 days because they can't make bond or because the other spouse won't pay the bond, which we see too. And ultimately those cases end up being disturbing the peace and they go away. But the person sat in jail, lost their job, you lose a lot of stuff when you sit in jail. So we're looking at some different ways to approach certain crimes, and a lot of that will be sitting down with the county attorney's office, diversion folks, probation folks, and saying, what can we put together to make the community safer? I don't know if any of you know this. Scotts Bluff, Nebraska is one of the top 5 crime cities in the state of Nebraska. Gering, Nebraska is one of the top 5 safest places to live. So, and I will tell you, if you look at the jail numbers, it's probably because Scotts Bluff arrests far more people than Gering does, and that's a function of the different styles of policing that they do. Gering uses a community policing model. Scotts Bluff uses a law and order model, or what we call a law and order model. And I'm going to pick on Scotts Bluff just a little bit, which I'm a Scotts Bluff High grad, I'm a Scotts Bluff High kid, I'm Scotts Bluff all through and through. But having a city manager try to be your police chief on a community that size doesn't work. And we're starting to see some breaks that could be problematic for the city of Scotts Bluff. They really need to get they need to get a chief. They need somebody in charge. So that when problems are coming up, there are people who can go talk to the chief and he's not distracted by other things. Because we're seeing some things, we're seeing videos of things that are very problematic. And going back to what I said earlier about we exist to avoid Gage County, City of Scotts Bluff needs to take some hard looks at some stuff that's going on.
Mike, are you seeing a lot of repeat type of things?
Yeah.
Here it is, here it comes again, here it comes again, here it comes again.
We see a lot of methamphetamine, ton of methamphetamine. What's interesting is, again, this is the way the two communities treat it. Gering, if you find a kid with a meth pipe in Gering, they give him a ticket for drug paraphernalia and send him to court. If they find a meth pipe on a kid in Scotts Bluff, they arrest him, charge him with possession of methamphetamine, even though he may have possessed it a week ago, because all he's got left is the residue that's in the pipe. But to them, that's possession. Same exact crime, but this one's being handled with a ticket and a fine, and this one's being handled with go sit in the jail until we get through. And by the time we get through all the process, we plead it down to an attempt, which is a class 1 misdemeanor. The kid sat in jail for 30 days or longer, and it's frustrating. And it's a paraphernalia case, and that's the way it ought to be treated in our estimation. And I understand the argument on the other side, I get it. But if you look at the two communities, you got one that's one of the top crime cities in the state, and you got one that's not. And yet, the two cities aren't all that different. I mean, despite our differences, we're not all that different. Yeah.
So in theory, if Scotts Bluff started policing like Gearing, the crime numbers would go down.
Correct.
But if Gearing started
Policing like Scotts Bluff.
they
not
would
gonna
go
go
up. So what's the difference?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, it's just if you, I think the officers, from what I can see in Gehring, have more leeway. They act actually more like Sheriff Overman's folks. And of all the agencies, his agency is probably the best. They try to calm folks down, get things controlled in the situation, and try not to arrest folks if they can avoid it. Scotts Bluff's default is arrest first, deal with it later. Gehring's default is let's try to do what the county does. If we can't do it, then we'll arrest. So it's just a philosophy difference, Charlie. But it's what are you trying to turn the community into? What are you trying to make it? Those are things I think that are legitimate questions for folks to ask and look at. I believe that is the end of my presentation. Any other questions?
No, I really appreciate you coming in and doing this, because it gives us a little better idea, and I don't think anybody wants to micromanage the office, but it gives us a better idea of what you deal with, and I know we do the same thing with Dave's office.
Right.
You know, updates, and I personally really appreciate it. I don't know how the rest of them feel, but.
I do too. I have a question for you now. When you
Okay.
talk about an arrest from Scotts Bluff from the city, they put them in the, I don't think the county jail can even hold them if they're minors. Where do they go? Do they go to Lincoln? Where do they ship them off?
And there's a whole process to arrest a minor,
Okay.
and so they have to score by, it's probation officers that decide that, and they have a scoring mechanism. So no, we can't.
So if they do arrest a minor though, is that the city of Scotts Bluff paying for their care or is the county paying for all that?
If they arrest a minor and they're on probation, the state pays for it. If they're not on probation, then Scotts Bluff County pays for it.
Okay. So then let's go up next stage. So if they're not a minor, they're older, they arrest them, put them in county jail. The county pays for that.
Oh, yeah.
The city has no skin in the game on that. They can arrest them, fill our jail, and there's no skin in the game for city of Scotts
We
Bluff.
can, but I'm gonna point something out here.
I'm just asking.
2023, calls for service, Gearing Police Department, 6,938. Scotts Bluff Police Department, 20,255, almost triple calls of service. And the other thing is, that I can tell you is, most of the crime in this county is property crime. We don't have that much violent crime, we certainly have some. Crime is generally driven by poverty, and it's generally property crimes. And so when you're looking at poverty and where do people live, there's just more people in Scotts Bluff, almost, probably not quite double.
Yeah.
And also, you have all the big box stores, they're all in Scotts Bluff. There's a lot more business in Scotts Bluff and more opportunities to commit crimes. So that's all I would point out. Just as Mr. Meister was talking about this, I was interested, having retired from the Scotts Bluff Police Department, I knew those numbers.
Yeah.
At least I knew kind of
Yeah.
the ratios. And, our calls for service in the county are much more like Gearing Police Department.
Okay.
I mean, the property crimes we see, Russ, are mostly shoplifting, and you see a lot of shoplifting. And that's where we see a lot of our frequent flyers. I mean, I had a client who got out of jail and went on a shoplifting spree to celebrate. I mean, that's unfortunate, but it happens, so. Any other questions?
Anything else, Mike?
Again, Mike, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and I will tell you this.
Good luck to you. Welcome back.
Welcome to come to our office any day, although this Friday, because it's the day after the 4th, every good public defender knows you take the fifth.
So, all right. Thanks again. Okay, next item is receive the update regarding the Morrill tornado and straight line winds. Ashley, how are you?
Okay, I didn't want to
Did I-
see you guys so soon.
Did I get a lot piled on you, Ashley? I used your
Yeah.
name a lot.
Yes, but that's okay.
Before you start, I want to thank you for the updates that we get.
Sure.
They are so informative, really,
Good.
really are.
I'm glad, because I
appreciate
think
it.
sometimes people are like, I don't want to get that.
No,
I'm
no,
like, just
no,
tell me
I-
and I'll take you off the list.
No, I really do appreciate them. I don't know if the rest
Good.
of them do, but I certainly do.
Good. Yeah, I've gotten a lot of good feedback on the weather updates. People are liking them. You know, I have certain procedures that I put into place for when I tell you guys that stuff is going to happen. I also, I don't know if you've noticed on the list, it's a lot of our tourism people, because I know they deal with like the RV parks and things like that, and they need to know when, even if it's not severe, when hail's coming and things like that. So I like to pass along that information. So I didn't want to go too in depth on what actually happened on the 20th and the 21st and the days following. I just wanted to give a brief update. So as most of us saw, it was a ton of tree damage. There was a ton of ag damage. A lot of those outbuildings got taken out. And so most of the reports that I got through Crisis Track, which is that self-reporting link, and by the way, this is an improvement that I'm wanting to make, is to get some of our volunteer groups to go out and do some of those damage assessments right when they happen. We've already put in procedures into place to start working on that. But the self-reporting link, there was a ton of that ag-related damage and tree damage. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff doesn't get counted towards the thresholds for the state. And that's why I provided this little document, and I got it from the recovery section of NEMA. I actually talked directly with them, and I told them I was coming here to talk with you, and so they wanted me to pass along some information. I went through this, and I asked Kelly to make it a color copy so you guys could see the pink highlights. So those are the areas that I'd like to kind of go over, but let me finish going through these updates. So we got 36 reports recorded. I know there's more. And I know the assessor knows there's more, but it's just a matter of people getting that information to us. I took this opportunity to go to the assessor's office, as well as speaking with the USDA about some of our ag community and making sure that those people were getting spoken to, reached out to, which, you know, I always try to figure out what my boundaries are and stay within working in my boundaries. I went out a little bit outside because I don't think that's something that we've ever had in the past, is getting those resources to the people that need them. And it takes 2 seconds for me to throw that information together and start getting it out to people that need it. We're obviously a verified office, you know, and government agency that connects people and liaisons between people, so why not? Now that we have those numbers and resources together, we can, when we go do damage assessments, we can give those to the public as we're doing them. And so I put together these packets for damage assessment teams, and part of that are cards on who to call for different kinds of damages, especially if we're not going to meet the threshold. So are there any questions directly related to the event that I can answer?
There was a lot of controversy that it was more than just wind.
Yeah, so,
When you look at some of the damage and the aftermath of some of the damage,
yeah,
not
so
sure that wind did that.
on the
I don't know.
21st, I made it a priority to meet with the Weather Service, because the sooner we get the call that it's a tornado, the better for insurance companies and all of those things. So I got together with Bill Boyer, and special thanks to Ray Richards, because I had him come drive us around so I could work on the computer while we were going around. And we were able to quickly determine that there was a tornado. So that was great. And those damage assessments that came in early on really, really helped with that. The sheriff was in the EOC when we activated it, and that allowed GIS to throw together a map pretty quickly on where some of that damage was happening, so I could present that to the Weather Service so we knew exactly where to go. And that was really helpful in conjunction with Bill Boyer, which I'm going to work more closely with him because he's a hub of information, so we need to be utilizing that. But yes, there was a lot of controversy on that and where it was, and if you take a weather spotter training, I'm sure a bunch of us have in here, they talk about how they determine the level of severity of a tornado, and it's based on the damage. So that's why doing those surveys are so important, because that tells us the level of tornado that we had. And that's why you see if tornadoes happen in more rural, or there's no buildings or trees, it's an unknown, you know, EFU. It's unknown because there's no damage to tell us the level of what it was. So, yes, there was a lot of controversy. I was happy to get that information quickly it was early the 22nd that the Weather Service put that out, so.
It was pretty easy to tell it was a tornado when you look at the trees, and there's little to no leaves in some of the trees, and the rest of the trees have all their leaves, so something went through there and plucked all those leaves
Well, and
out of
everything's
there.
all different directions,
It's
it's
every
not
direc-
pointing, so, yeah.
There was a rye field right east of Steve Schmidt's where we were cleaning up that job when you guys had drove in that
Yeah.
day. I seen you drive in. And, that field, you could just look like a worm had crawled out through there. You could just see it, you know, right through that field. It was late, the crops were late
Yeah.
down.
There was one, and it was a totem pole. It was about between 800 and 1,000 pounds, big, round, protected by trees all around, and they watched it move across. I mean, like, it didn't like blow and roll. It was up in the air,
And moved.
moving, and then dropped down.
Yeah,
Wow.
And I'm thinking, that's not wind.
That's not
Yeah.
wind. It would've rolled it like a snowball.
It would have rolled it or done something with it, you
Yeah.
know, so, and that's why, that's the
Yeah.
kind of calls that I was receiving, you know,
Right.
were there little tornadoes, were there little twisters, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't, you know,
there was a ton of information coming in, and it was a very, for me, an unusual weather event. There was a lot of factors going on, one being fog, during the storm, so people were like, I think there's a tornado there, but I'm not sure. And sitting in the comms department, a lot of those reports where they're like, I think that's what's going on, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't have eyes on it because of fog and,
and I'm not blaming, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
I'm not blaming,
no,
I'm just
you're
saying,
good.
this is Scotts Bluff County. Everything gets exaggerated a lot more than what
yeah.
it really is,
Well,
too.
you know, I was grateful to be in the comms department and kind of experience that as well. I wish I had the EOC open ahead of time. I was helping Tim leave the office while that storm was starting to hit, so it was a little of a chaotic time for me. But I was glad to be in there, and I think we've come strides with the comms department, helping each other and updating each other on, because the same weather updates you get, I send to them as well, because they need to know if they need to beef up staff and things like that. Especially if we're gonna activate the EOC, we need them to be over there for incident comms, so.
Have you heard if we're gonna qualify for any disaster funds?
So that's kind of why I brought the public officials packet to you guys, because, and it has the thresholds in the back, I'm sure you guys have seen it. We're not going to, because of the eligibility parts, a lot of the damage that we got are not eligible for the governor's relief fund.
I've heard there's 70, 80 sprinklers down.
Yeah, that was my question. So all these flipped center pivots, they don't add to the total to help us meet that
Unfortunately,
threshold?
they don't, and that's why I reached out to USDA and I called some of my farmer friends that I know of, cause I said, what do you guys do when this happens? And tried to find other resources, because it became very clear to me very quickly that we were not gonna meet the threshold, because the damage did not qualify and was not eligible to be counted towards the threshold.
That needs to change.
That's not good.
Or make sure everybody reports everything, that's the other thing,
Right.
yeah.
Right,
Well,
and I think that's a piece that we've been missing here in Region 22 is the reporting of it, and making sure, because every time reports were, daily, I was sending reports to the recovery section of NEMA to let them know this is what's going on over here, especially after we're still technically recovering from that April event.
I still have never heard anything or seen anything in the media about you asking for that. I don't know where it
And-
went to.
When I was coming up here, I was like, man, I should have took those press releases and
Yeah.
told you where and who we sent them to. And I brought my media list if
When I
you guys
talked to
wanted
you-
to see that. I didn't get it to you in time. This is my list that I send everything to. This one's my copy. Just so you guys can see who is getting the information.
Yeah, but are they putting it out, or is anybody following up
I
on
mean,
this?
that's the problem is I can't make them. I can just send them emails and request them to push it. This is directly from my Outlook contact, so.
You and I talked about getting it back on KNB and running it some more. Did it get back on
And
there?
I got a hold of Bill and I asked about it and nothing that I am aware of went out, so.
Well, we're not doing a very good job then, I would say. Cause I mean, there's a lot of people out there hurting pretty bad and I don't think we're accommodating them very well.
Right.
Well, I know I use social media to put out, your information and.
Yeah, I sent that to you.
The online self-reporting.
I seen it on
And
Facebook.
I sent that also to individual people in my neighborhood who had pivots over and
Right.
buildings gone, and hopefully they did something.
Yeah, no, I saw, after you got a hold of me, I saw a bunch come in and then Russ called me, asking for a phone number for people to call. And I took the damage reports, I took them manually when I was in the office and could get them, and then called people back and then connected them with the USDA, because as of right now, I don't have any resources and I don't know if we're gonna meet the threshold. And then talking to the recovery section, I'm like,
Do crops count or anything like that count towards it? Will crop
so no,
damage?
let's actually just get right into this, so
Okay.
we can go over the actual regulations. I'm sure some of you guys have already looked into it.
It basically has to be public.
It has to be public, so I wrote down, I think it's on page 5. So on page 5, that first highlight, the intent of the Governor's Emergency Fund is to aid political subdivisions of the state to maintain or promptly restore essential public facilities or services when threatened by or damaged as a result of a natural or man-made disaster. Assistance will be provided at the direction of the governor. So that last sentence is the reason why I'm sending all of our reports to the state, because it's really up to the governor if he decides it's a big enough problem. And that's the other reason why I wanted to get to the USDA as quickly as possible too, because they're obviously sending information to the state to provide assistance to people out here. And so the reports that came in through Crisis Track and that self-reporting link that were ag-related, I sent those all to the USDA. I just sent the whole report with all the damage descriptions, addresses, names, contact information.
So basically NPPD power would qualify. How about the rail cars that were laid over? Those are pretty much public coal cars.
So on page 8, it actually talks about, the governor has final discretion regarding providing financial assistance to the following entities. And public power districts are on there because they don't automatically qualify. It has to be the governor's discretion. So that emergency that we had here in April, that was based on the governor's decision to actually help us get those essential functions back up.
So it says, the way I read that is that public power districts and electric co-ops are not eligible for assistance unless they meet those specific, criteria on
Right.
the back.
Right,
on the next
and
page.
the governor's discretion as
Yeah.
well, yeah. And at the end of this as well, I just wanna make this very clear, there is a wildfire attachment specifically, cause we do tap into that, this fund for wildfires. And if you wanna see that, I didn't print the attachment, cause this is like a 50-page document or something like that with, attachments. And the reports, I would have brought those to you, but that was like 100 pages or so, it was pretty extensive. So if you guys wanna see any of that, I'm happy to share that. But, yeah, so the wildfire is a special circumstance as well, that they can tap into the governor's fund to pay for resources for that.
We did talk that night at the EOC.
Yes.
I can't remember who I was talking to specifically, but when you look at the, storm, the blizzard that we had, in when was that, March or
April.
whatever, April? And then this storm, the number of power poles that have been damaged, destroyed, and then replaced has been a massive amount
Yep.
compared to what we're normally used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I directly called NPPD, Roosevelt, and WAPA, and I got their numbers for their valuations for damage. And I sent it off to NEMA, and all I can do is stay on NEMA until I get answers. So I actually called them 3 or 4 times today and sent a report to them, and just trying to get a hold of anybody in that hierarchy, because I have their hierarchy, and
Do you remember how many poles did we lose on this last storm?
So I don't have the number of polls, but Roosevelt estimated approximately, and you're gonna have to talk to one of their spokespersons, cause it changes all the time, it feels like, but 500,000, and same for MPPD. And WAPA, one of the citizens.
500,000 in damage or?
Yes, $500,000 in damage, incident or event expenses. So labor, things of that nature, calling, mutual aid, which they had to do. And I could tell talking to the general managers that they were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe something like this just happened again. And so they were happy to hear from our office to try to get those numbers and send it off to the state to see if we could get something worked out again. Which it is a possibility that something could come up for the power public districts. I don't know for sure. Recovery right now for the state of Nebraska is bogged down with all the stuff happening all across the state, and so I don't know how they prioritize. I can't speak on that, but I know that I've been told they're looking at our information that we're sending and they're putting it into a case file. So, and they've always been so good at getting to it. It's just getting it. When are we getting to it?
If you take the April storm and then the one that we just had, combine the two of them, would be enough, you would think, that to get the aid we need.
Yeah, and that's part of, I don't remember where it is. I marked it. Okay, on page 7, 2.2.5, that highlight. So after the threshold deductible has been met, the state will match ineligible expenditures. But that, where I put the star, is the threshold deductible is removed once for each incident and is not an annual threshold. So that's the other thing we have to keep in mind.
Are you forwarding all this to USDA as well?
The reports that have come in?
Are you pushing,
Yes.
sending those to USDA?
Any ag reports, anything ag related, I've been sending to them, and I had a really good conversation with Allison, the director over there, so.
So that, it says they may have additional funding over there, so if we can get everything to them to be sure they've got everything we have.
Yep, and that's another thing is, that's why I touched base with the assessor as well, cause I was like, if you have any reports coming in, let's share information. And that's why I added last minute the valuation, he sent me, this is old, we have more to add to this. But I tried to get some numbers at least for our our private entities to send to NEMA as well. But the biggest part is that reporting piece, making sure people are reporting and telling us what's going on, so we can help them. And even if it's just telling the assessor, now Robert and I have been talking, we can share information to help one another.
And that's
so.
the important part, is to get all that information, get it where it needs to go so that they can make a decision on it. And
Right.
I think that's
And that's
very
that
important.
Form 425. I learned up all about that so that we can make sure we can get that to the citizens as well. And this 425 for the destroyed real property, they have until July 15th to get this in. And so I've been trying to push that as well. And that's why the last press release, and I can't remember the day I sent it, that had all the information for the USDA, our damage link, as well as this Form 425. I put all of that on there and was trying to push that information. So, yeah. I wish I had a little bit more control of the media to
It's a little
tell them to push some
interesting
information.
That we had this storm, and then of course, just by happenstance, our deadline is July 15th.
I know.
And so it's
For sure,
coming real quick here.
for sure the 15th.
I believe it's correct, cause I was in Robert's office earlier today, and that's what he told me,
Perfect. Is that right? Well,
so.
we told somebody today, but it's done. She had a lot of forms that she
She's
filled
already
out.
filled it
And
out.
she's gonna go before you on the 15th. And Robert and I just talked about it Friday. I just
Yeah.
can't keep everything
It's
straight
okay.
right now.
All good. But that's been the biggest piece, I think, of this that we were missing is internally in the county and all of our departments, making sure that we're talking and sharing information and that we're very clear on what our boundaries are and who I need to send who to, and connecting all of those dots, and making sure the citizens are getting exactly the resources that they need and that they don't have to call 15 places to get the things that they need. So,
Good.
So could the USDA help with the cost of replacing these pivots or assisting somehow, or no?
so I'm hoping so, but I don't know all of that information, unfortunately. My plan was to call, the USDA office that my family works with and kind of talk with them, cause I'm more familiar with them, and get some more information and get very
So-
clear on the boundaries in which the USDA can help, but,
So what you and I talked about when we talked on the phone basically isn't even true. The thing to do, that the counties, cities, or the municipalities are the only one that can.
right.
deal. So the farmers and ag people have no reason to call from now on.
Yes and no, because
What-
I would like to get the reports, because we gotta make sure that if it is something
I
large.
think those people have way better things to do once their farm's
Sure.
upside down than to call and report a lot of nothing, because
Yeah, but
it's not gonna go
my
anywhere.
best guess is that, again, as a private entity, they're gonna look first about insurance. Did you have it, or did you have it available to you? And then if they qualify for some kind of assistance, in my opinion, it's the way I've seen most of their stuff work, it's gonna be a low interest rate loan if it's on private property.
Right.
Yeah.
But this basically is all municipalities in here. There's no reason
Right.
for a
The-
farmer
the
or a rancher
municipality
to call
part,
in
I
from now
think
on.
we can, there's a
Won't do 'em any
legitimate
good.
possibility. But those farmers like the sprinklers, that's just my take on what I've heard about stuff in the past.
Well, and I know when it becomes an extremely large-scale situation, you can't double dip. So if you do have insurance, you can't receive assistance. So there's also that piece of it, so, you know,
Well, I've also heard where some of the insurance companies are assisting their clients
right,
with those programs. If they don't have the insurance.
right,
Then they're making the calls for them and trying to.
Yes.
Trying to get the extra help for them, which
That's
is
good.
really good.
yep.
That's good.
All right.
Ashley,
um,
thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think that's everything. I just wanna make sure.
Keep up the good work. Hopefully we'll back off on some storms for a while.
That
for
would be
you.
great for me. All right.
Thanks again, Ashley.
Yes, just let me know if there's anything else that I can provide, and I will do that.
We'll do that. Thank you, Ash. All right. Next item.
What happened to the 425 that you signed for Robert? Did he take it?
I think he took it. I signed it. I even had to date it. Okay, review food service RFP.
He brought it to me. That's what it said. Thank you, Sheriff.
Okay, gentlemen, I've, for the last several years, well, actually, since I've been at the detention center, we've had the same food service vendor known as Summit. And we were, I'd say, okay with Summit for quite some time, and then they had some changes in management, and this was also about the time that COVID hit and inflation hit, but the changes in management we weren't ecstatic about, because the new managers were really giving us significant raises, so we went to a request for proposals in the last year. We've accepted their raises that were really significant. And so, so before you, I have food service requests for proposal. We received proposals from 3 vendors, all of whom we deemed qualified to provide this service. The estimates are based on an average daily population of 237 inmates with 20 kosher meals per day. And under jail standards, if somebody wants a kosher meal, we give them a kosher meal.
What about vegan?
What's that? Yeah, we give them a kosher meal. So we do that, every jail does that. And so you can see the various vendors here and what they would charge. And so the approximate annual cost from the most expensive vendor was $717,000 a year. Our current vendor was $605,000 a year. And But the third vendor that applied is Trinity Services Group. So we find them very qualified. We've checked places where they're at. Founded over 30 years ago. They are going to provide us something no one else offered, a $30,000 capital fund for new equipment in the kitchen at no cost to us.
I couldn't figure out who us was. That's county. Okay.
Is that a one-time, 30,000?
One time.
Okay.
Yeah, if they get the contract. Favorable references and menu, and the thing about menus is, these folks in our jail get 2 hot meals a day, 1 cold meal a day. Some places they get more or less than that, but that's the way it was. If your food service isn't good, you hear about that from the detainees right away. And so anyhow, the other thing is, this Trinity Services Group proposes 4 employees and weekly on-site management visit. Right now we have 3 employees and there's no regular management visits. So they're also proposing the kosher and regular meals at the same price, where both of the others are charging, one is charging $8.95 a piece, and the other one's almost exactly the same for kosher meals. And so they come in at $534,639, which is a savings to the county of roughly $70,000, which is a lot better than the last contract I brought you, which was the medical contract going over $100,000. So this kind of mitigates the medical.
Well, it's actually $100 if you put that $30,000 of equipment back there, so it's a good deal.
Yeah, so I'm gonna, that's gonna be our suggestion.
That's your recommendation?
That's
But
my
you did check them
recommendation
out?
is Trinity Services Group. They're also a part of another group that is called Keefe that does our banking. And Keefe has been, they've been very good. They've been doing that for a couple of years now, and they've been very responsive, very good.
What was
Won't say
that?
there's no problems, but they're very responsive.
That name was what again? Keith?
Keefe, Keefe. But the name you need to do, we're dealing
Right.
with Trinity Services
Right.
Group.
But
They follow
they're
the umbrella
related.
of Keefe.
Okay.
Big company when it comes to jails. They do a lot in a lot of places nationwide.
I heard you say you checked them out and their
Yes, we did.
food was good.
We checked them out with a number of jails that we're familiar with, both in Nebraska and Colorado, jails that are our size, and they were satisfied with their.
Well, that's
Okay.
good to know.
We've got the review. We can move on to the next one to discuss and consider the approval of awarding the food service bid. We can continue that.
I'd move we accept the, proposal from Trinity Services Group for $34,000 and, $639.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Record your votes.
Did I get her up there? No?
Everybody get through, Kelly?
We're good.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
I
thank you.
have a question for you. We, got a call on Thursday, did we not, to, balance out the county court budget? We had to do that over the phone, and that was supposed to have been on the agenda today to
Ratify?
and I don't see any ratification under, for that. I don't feel comfortable letting that set 2 weeks. How about you guys?
Should have addressed that at the beginning. I forgot all about that.
I don't think we
actually.
could put it on there now. It wasn't there then, but.
Well, we could add it at the beginning as emergency item, if we needed to.
Well, somebody should have caught it, I guess. Somebody
Yeah,
would.
I wouldn't even see it.
I caught it once we got to rolling, and then I didn't want to interrupt you till we got to this point.
Okay,
We can
deal with it. She had 3 signatures on it for the approval. We just need to ratify.
That should have
those
been here,
3.
though. I think that,
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I'm
We
just,
all agree with you, Russ. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
And
What?
I don't have the email, I can't find the email, but she and I verbally talked about it, that's why I asked for emails, so I don't forget stuff, but
okay.
I did obviously miss it.
All right,
As
we
we've
can't really do
discussed it.
anything with it now. One of the things we could do
And I don't
is
have the
on,
form.
the first day of our protest hearings, which is next week.
We'd have to go into a meeting instead of a, what do you
Oh,
call
well,
it?
we
Well,
do.
we go to a meeting every time.
Yeah, we do a meeting anyway.
Okay.
So
Just
we
so
could,
we're in
that
a
could
public
be a
meeting.
agenda item on there, and then we'll take action on it
For the
We
8th?
wanted to.
on the 8th, when our first one is, okay? Does that work for you? Doug?
But, yeah, we gotta get
Okay.
it done. I mean, that should have been here.
All right, very good. Thanks for catching that. I forgot all about it.
Randy
All right,
Fine.
move
You're
on
not
to
the
old
only one.
business. Clerk of the District Court window remodel. I'm guessing it's not done yet. And Lisa's not here to discuss the time clock plus and payroll process.
Well, I guess, I would just say we could probably take that off of old business, the time clock plus and payroll process, if that needs to go to, personnel. board.
Personnel board, yeah,
So, that's,
Okay.
I guess that's where it's at.
that works. We can keep the window on there.
Maybe put that on once a month.
You told me to leave it, I need to leave it on, if that's okay. We can bypass it every week, or every meeting,
Okay.
but I can't take it off.
Next item is public comments. The Board of Commissioners will receive public comments on items discussed at this meeting or suggestions for items of discussion at future board meetings. The board will not take any action on this. Is there anybody that wishes to speak to the commissioners? Kyle?
Kyle Long with the Simmons Olson Law Firm on behalf of Situla Energy Project LLC. I'm just here tonight real briefly to inquire or at least remind the commissioners of their obligation under 23-11401 subsection 6 to produce a written finding of fact detailing the reasons for the denial and the factual basis for the denial that's required by Nebraska statute. So the Situla had asked me, had this been done? I said I had not received one yet at this point, and they asked me to come to the commissioners meeting to make sure that we ask for that, so we know in the future with what direction the project is going, to try to address the concerns as we move forward.
Okay, and what's the deadline for that, Kyle?
The statute says it's supposed to be done done with the decision, and so,
That didn't happen.
I know.
Will you tell me what it's called again?
It's a finding of fact.
Isn't that something that I would have from Billy, possibly?
It may be something from Bill, but the planning commission's findings were obviously different than what the commissioners found on the denial, so this would be a finding of fact pursuant to the denial.
okay.
I got the statute here if you want it.
I wanna see if,
And
Okay.
maybe the planning
maybe he
commission
did
knew
and we
it.
just.
Mr.
haven't
Harris, I think it's
pushed
time
it
for
on.
you to get your attorney hired now.
Yeah,
So,
I think
we
that's
need to
the
get on
story
it.
right there, and that's we need to
I think before
decide who
Monday.
that is, and I don't know that we can decide here tonight, and
can't do anything
we
tonight
can't make a
without legal
decision,
counsel.
but we certainly can talk a little bit about it, in that, yeah, it's,
I think we probably
been-
could go into an executive session to do that.
I think maybe we should go into executive session at some point tonight to
Yeah.
discuss personnel.
Okay.
I don't know if we can though.
All right, well, thank you. I
Okay.
have no further comments, but thank you for your time tonight,
Okay,
commissioners.
thank you. We'll
We
try
just
to,
had an
we'll
attorney
work
hand
on
us
it
a-
here.
What?
I said we'll work on it and see what
Yeah.
we need to get
If you need
done.
anything, let me know.
We just had an attorney hand us a statute that needs to be complied with. I think that's enough reason.
Okay, anybody else? Yes.
Good evening, Reg Preston, 3719 Five Oaks Drive, Scotts Bluff.
Hey, Mark, have you got a minute for me? I got a couple, have you got a minute for me?
Okay, hang on just a minute, guys. Go ahead.
All right, good afternoon, gentlemen, thanks. By way of an update from my three questions last time I spoke to you, Charlie had called me a couple of days after the fact, and certainly, as you well know, the authority of a board such as yours is only when you're in session, so I just wanted to recap the two comments that he gave me and shared with me for the record, and to discuss a little bit on the third one. So for the first question I had, what happened in the last 6 months, the answer was very clearly that early in January, I had the wrong meeting initially. Early in January, the first meeting, the board voted to have an RFP placed by Mr. Maben to hire a contractor to go figure out your comprehensive plan and also to include the elements of solar that are in whole lacking, just because it didn't exist when it was written originally. Regarding the next 6 months, the answer was the same as the first 6 months, was the intent is to put out an RFP to get a contractor to rewrite the comprehensive plan. And then that leaves us with the third question, which is, what about the moratorium and the process to place a moratorium? We didn't discuss it. It didn't come up. Like I said, I appreciate the call, Charlie. But we didn't discuss that third item. So I guess I'll ask if there's any update or discussion from the board. I recognize public comment. You don't have to make a comment, but perhaps there is one.
I'll mention something just, first of all, I'm Bill Maben's direct commissioner supervisor. And in the last 7 business days, I'll call it, he and I have traded phone calls. But I think the intent was to ask him of what progress have we made on that comprehensive plan. And of course, what I understood that we did at the previous meeting was that we voted to continue the, what, moratorium, would that be the right word?
Yeah.
Until we got that plan put together. And that's the only reason that I voted for that, was because I felt we didn't have a plan together and we weren't nearly ready for it either, at least from the information that I had talked with Bill earlier. And so it's my intention to push Bill to do that, but we all talked about an attorney being involved to finalize any of that, and this item that Kyle brought tonight. And I think we have to do that, and maybe we'll talk yet tonight about how we're going to choose who that attorney's gonna be. And it goes back to a bigger issue. We've been talking about a different attorney to handle the civil items, any issues other than criminal, which we would continue for Dave to do that. And Dave's in agreement that if we hired another attorney to handle our other things, be here at meetings, in my opinion, and help with these types of issues to get them moving forward quicker, because it really, some of this is certainly outside of Bill Maben's expertise, and whatever we come up with there is gonna have to be an attorney's gonna have to give their blessing for us to be able to say it's appropriate for what we're thinking. And so I think that's where we're at, but frankly, I would just, from some of the information I've had, is that I'd be surprised to say whether we've even accomplished 20% or 30% of a comprehensive plan in this past 6 months.
We've
so
gotten
to
an
speak.
overview from Martin and Keith, haven't we?
We do,
I mean,
we do from
okay.
that outside.
All right, so that's
All right.
been brought in.
Yeah, and so just using that alone was a fairly big step.
It's a good place to start.
Right, but putting it in Scotts Bluff County's language to be applied to Scotts Bluff County's plan, so to speak, we're certainly not there now, and we need to make serious progress. And the only way I see that happening is with that outside attorney and Bill Maben working together and then bringing in what other expertise they need to help them do that. Cause I think we're probably talking about a local attorney for the position that I was talking about. And that local attorney is still not gonna have the expertise possibly needed to put all of this together. He may need some other outside help as well. So, in my opinion, that's where I think we're at.
Any discussion on specifically the moratorium that's in place, the authority the board has to place a moratorium, be it on this topic or any other? Kyle had a statute that he could quote that there was a thing that the board should produce. I can't even quote you a statute because I can't find a statute that says you could have a moratorium. So just looking for information, if the board has it, what allows the moratorium to go into place without a public hearing to place it, is the third question that I had. So I appreciate the updates on the first two. The third question stands, and it allows conclusions to be drawn, not least of which are all related to the fact that you severely lack sufficient legal counsel to do the business that you're trying to do, be it this or any other number of things. But yet and still, that's the burden that's at the board's feet. So I appreciate your efforts and looking forward to further discussion, future discussion on the board's authority to place the moratorium.
So, yeah, sorry, I completely blanked your third question there about what is our authority to place a moratorium. So I just sent a note over here to the Nebraska Association of County Officials, to see what is our authority to do that.
Sure.
If we have any.
It was clear with him in the room last time that he's one of those guys that helps with that, so.
Yep.
Looking forward to that answer.
So, and if he can't get an answer, he's got several lawyers on staff that'll just tell us the statute if there is one.
And he's an attorney too.
Yeah, yeah. And just a quick Google search, USA Today wrote an article dated February 4th that says USA Today's analysis found 15% of counties nationwide now have some impediment to new utility scale wind and solar energy. So I guess my reasoning for doing so or feeling that we had the authority to do so was just precedent. That was all I was going on at the time. So I know Red Willow has one, Lincoln County has one, I believe Sarpy County has one in place. Just got a message back here. All he said, his quick and easy answer here is a moratorium is fine for a definite and limited amount of time. So, if we keep extending the moratorium, you will definitely, we'll have issues if we continue to.
Just to share a little bit
extend.
of my own background, which I have no idea if you have any idea. So I'm an ex-Navy submarine officer. I'm a nuclear power trained officer. Highly regulated industry. We don't do anything unless we have the authority to do it, which comes from books that track all the way to one single executive order in the early 80s when Reagan took office. So my view on the world, or bias or lens, if you will, is that we get to do things because we're allowed to do things in the U.S. government, and simply doing them because we see others doing them, or it gives us the comfort to take a pause and do work which you have to do, which is a lot, and it's significant, and it has very long-reaching effects, still does not give you sufficient authority to do it, just as a matter of course. There's any number of examples you could probably come up with that a public elected body doesn't get to go do just because they want to do. And I am certain that there's a lot you guys would love to do, but you simply can't because you just you don't have the room to play in that arena. It's just the way the state's written, how counties will do what counties will do.
So I will say that, one of the things I've argued against for 25 years is, Nebraska is a powers granted state. And if there are powers granted state, it says, unless we give you permission to do it, you can't do it. But I believe, they certainly give us permission to form rules and regulations and promulgate those things in that office. And so then the only argument would be is, that specific item and the moratorium, is that legal? I don't know. We have to find that out. But certainly Nebraska is a powers granted state, and, so, yeah, we kinda have permission.
I think we're
So,
all in agreement.
Yeah, so,
Thanks, gentlemen.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Kim?
Ken?
My name is Kim Bowman.
Kim, are
I
you
live
back
at-
to fire Charlie again?
That's still on the table. That's still on the table.
Put me on that, name. Put my name on the bumper too. I'll go with him when he goes. I have no reason to be here.
Hey, you
Just put me
gentlemen
on.
have made some really good decisions, but this one, my opinion, you blew it.
No, I don't think so.
So, my
I-
name
I
is
think-
Kim Bowman. I live at
there's a lot of issues that need to be-
1755 19th Street in Gearing. And I've been working with and been in contact with the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. And so I got a few documents I'm gonna pass out. You can throw them away, you can do what you want. Thank you. Okay, the document I want, some of the documents you can get online from them. But after talking to them last week and a little bit this morning, this few pages shows you that the state of Nebraska has been involved in the solar energy business for years. So they have this down pretty pat, how it goes. So after going through just a few documents, and if you would go through these few documents, it looks like, to me, the Scotts Bluff County Commissioners are trying to reinvent the wheel with solar energy. And you're stymieing economic progress by doing this. So my point is, I guess, my question is, for the 4 commissioners that voted to extend the moratorium, are you in a position to recant and issue this permit now?
Not I.
Okay, well, I just want the public to know, I think you gentlemen are stifling the county economically, and I don't blame companies for not wanting to come here with this kind of attitude.
We've got 50 empty buildings. You just heard that tonight, didn't you?
Go to
And-
his
and we probably
go
got
to his
60.
website, he does not have those on there. I checked to get 2 added, there were 3 on there.
He said he had over 50.
I'm just telling you, go to his website tonight. Ken, have you got
And
anything?
I think them buildings emptied out long before we made any of these decisions.
What do those empty buildings have to do with solar energy? Please, Russ.
Well, you're talking economics. You're telling me that we're stifling economics.
You
And
are.
I'm telling you, there's 50 empty buildings we just heard tonight. How did we stifle those? Tell me that.
That has no bearing on what the past. I'm asking about solar.
That's what we're talking
development.
about as the future. We're gonna have a
So-
decommissioning plan. There's gonna be a few other things.
Please
on
call
there.
the state of Nebraska. They've been through this. Look, they got plants that are in operation and have been for years.
We'd like to see that up and running.
Okay, can we do one at a time, please? Charlie,
Do you mind,
what,
Russ,
You're it.
if I go?
You're it.
Kim, are you willing to answer a few questions, or just maybe just engage in a discussion during your public comment time? I just wanna run through a few things here.
I'm not gonna go through this, what we go through this lobbying stuff and
Okay,
filibuster.
well, let's just, if you don't wanna
Please.
answer, just tell me, fine.
No,
Okay.
I'm not gonna answer.
Okay, so
No, I'm not gonna answer.
400 megawatt facility was what was proposed out here. These projects that you listed, or you.
No, this came from the state of
okay,
Nebraska.
Okay, from the state of Nebraska. We got a 0.5 megawatt project, we've got a 1.4 megawatt project, we've got a 1 megawatt project, another 1 megawatt, a 2.4 megawatt, a 3.22 megawatt, a 1 megawatt, another 1 megawatt.
Look at the last pages of that. You're gonna see there's lots of megawatts. And the big one's back in, what, Papillion or something? We're just reinventing the wheel, gentlemen. You don't have to. Just call Lincoln and get some help.
How many megawatts is that Papillion one?
I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
gonna read it to you guys. That's why I gave it to you. Please review it and try and change your attitude and reverse this moratorium and pass it. I know, Russ, you're hung up on the sugar factory.
But no, I'm I would like to see some decommission, protect the people down the road, which we weren't protected here. Look at where we're sitting right now. It costs $60-70 million to get us where we should be on these sugar factories.
The sugar factories have no bearing on this project. Go
Right.
talk to Western
They're an
Sugar.
example. They're an example, is all I'm using for. Just like what you just gave us, these are examples only. I'm giving you an example. Those sugar factories should have been decommissioned,
Well, then,
leveled, and put down. But they sold them to the poorest people in the county, the farmers of them. Do you think farmers can afford to decommission those? No, the millionaires left with their money a long time ago, but the farmers are stuck with them. Who do you think's gonna own that out there when those guys leave? It's gonna be more farmers and ranchers.
No,
And there's
it's-
nobody gonna have the money to fix anything.
no, it's the family that owns the land's gonna be stuck with if it goes belly
That's
up.
the same people I'm talking about. That's the same people
And
that
they're
raise
willing to
sugar beets.
take the risk.
Pardon me?
They're willing to take the risk.
What risk is there but other than collect a paycheck?
Somebody's gotta install that thing.
They're
So
not
if
gonna
it-
install anything.
But if you're worried about 30 years down the road and Situla or whoever owns it at that point bails out, it's the Preston family's gotta clean that mess up. It's on their land. They don't want it that way.
That's all I want them to confer, that they're gonna do it. And that's why I want a decommissioning plan that says they'll be willing to sell that land in lieu of cleaning that property up.
I think you guys are trying to reinvent the wheel here.
Hard.
Call DEQ or whatever it's called now officially. They can help you guys out. You don't have to go hire fancy lawyers.
Well-
It's been over and over, reinventing the wheel, wasting time.
Well, Kim, we don't have any policy at all for green energy. We gotta have some sort of policy here to protect the people of the county, don't we? So.
But they
if
came
somebody
in and-
else
and
doesn't
my-
come in, are you gonna let anybody come in from now on? You don't really need Charlie and I here. You could appoint anybody you guys want here. Charlie and I can stay at home. It'd be a lot easier. I don't need this
Maybe we should
job.
be, you guys should be
Yeah,
on this
I don't need
case.
to be
I
here.
think
got
you've done
other
some
things I
great
can
jobs
do.
for us,
But
all
I'm
you
here to
guys.
represent these people and I'm gonna stay here until it's done.
But you're not doing it on the solar plant. You're making you're making new rules up. You're
I'm
gonna
not making any rules
make
up.
policy so the farmers can't even farm their own dirt to keep this up. Come
We're not
on.
making any policies.
You're trying
We're-
to.
Green energy needs policies, and those we're gonna have.
Please look at that and you're gonna see Nebraska's
We
been
will.
involved
I'll read
since, I think, 2007.
I'll read it, but you know darn well, you want policies, the same as you want building permits. You sell houses. And if they were thrown together in piles of junk, you wouldn't wanna sell them. You wouldn't wanna put your name on selling something like that. That's why you have building permits in this county. I think we have pretty good product in this county.
But am I correct that after Situla made his application, then the county decided, oh, we need to stop this and change what ag says?
We learned about this policy after that our building inspector's name was on the permit for 6 months. We found out about it on KNB and I called these guys. There was everything was backdoored, nothing was brought to this board.
I don't think anything was backdoored, but I
Okay,
can't
really?
prove
And
that.
that's why Billy Maven's name was on that permit for 6 months, cause nothing was backdoored?
I can't speak for Billy or the
I
commission.
can't either,
I can't.
but I don't think that's how things are supposed to work here.
Well, please reconsider, withdraw that moratorium,
We'll,
and get the
like I
permit
said,
issued
once
quickly.
once we have some policy in place and a decommissioning policy, I don't have a problem with it, but those things are gonna have to be in place.
But am I correct, Russ, and we've been through this before, the night you denied that permit, you said the only reason I'm denying is because the name on the application's wrong. That's the
That-
only reason.
that was what I
And
said
now
that
you've
night.
added and added and
No,
added.
we
You can
did-
never catch up with you guys. Please. How about progress?
Progress is great, if it's progress.
I think that what's being asked for us to put our requirements in writing, and that's what that bill should be doing for us. Bill and help from attorney or whoever, let's put in writing what we believe to be the important items, and then that way it's in writing and it doesn't have to be wishy-washy, but it's
But didn't you
matter of
just tell
fact.
Mr. Preston, you haven't got this done, so how long is this gonna go on? I mean, they can't wait nor can Situla. I just think you guys really are out of your league on this solar farm and the way you're approaching it.
well,
Because when ag
I
had two
agree
things,
with
am I
you.
correct, Mr. Meyer? About the zoning originally, you can't damage the neighbors and what you can't,
Does it meet the zoning code?
right. After they applied for that, then you start changing all these rules on these people. So it's like you did it After
At-
the horse,
you
after
mean-
the
you
horse
mean
race
6
started.
months after it was applied for, and we found out about it 6 months later? We didn't know anything about it, but a year and a half ago, we went through and we changed all kinds of mapping, so they got their land, all that stuff down pat, and then all this came in between that? Yeah, I
We
remember
could
how
have,
that all
we
went
could have
together.
started this process then.
We could have started this a year and a half ago, if somebody would've came and been honest and said, hey, we wanna do this.
Are you saying that the owners of the land are dishonest or Situate
No,
is
I'm just
dishonest?
saying, I don't even know if our building inspector's honest, and I want that on the record, because his name was on that application 6 months before anyone in this room saw that.
Well, then that's dereliction of duty on your part. If you
Yeah,
can't control the
I'd say
people
so.
you're managing.
Well, we're stopping that tonight, cause we're gonna get some policy in order, and we're gonna stop the dereliction of duty tonight. How's that?
That's fine.
And
I
if you
just
wanna
wish-
fire me and Charlie, put my name on his bumper as well, and we can both go home. We can get anybody you want up here, and you guys can get this run right through. Shouldn't be a problem for you,
Hey,
if that's what you want.
So, I mean, Russ brings up a really good point regarding, Situla came out here, the Preston family started looking at this, what, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago was when some of the platting changed or the maps changed out there, the property lines, that sort of stuff.
July of 22 is when
When
we
did,
first
when
had
did
an
Situla
application.
first lay eyes on western Nebraska? That's when we should have been looking at.
then who
so
dropped the
the
ball?
comprehend- huh?
Who dropped the ball?
Yeah.
Wasn't,
Well, let me-
wasn't
let
them,
me-
it wasn't
No,
me,
nobody
it wasn't
told,
you.
we learned about, okay, Situla knew about this 2 years ago.
I can't prove that. Can you prove that?
Yeah, I
They
have a
told-
piece of
they
paper
told
in my
us.
phone that shows
Scott
when
Ikes
they
told us
first.
2 years
Okay,
ago.
hang on
contract
just a
with
minute. Can I ask the Prestons? Does Situla ask you to keep it under wraps for a while? Was there any of that discussion?
This is,
You guys had an agreement. at
Okay,
the time between
just
two-
let him answer. What?
so the analogy that you seek to best understand this, or at least the one that I subscribe to, is an oil lease.
Pardon? I didn't hear that.
An oil lease?
Okay.
Everybody's familiar with, I think, basically familiar with what oil leases
Right.
are. They're all over the place. And you can count the number of oil wells that are drilled in this county,
Not many.
and it's not many compared to the number of leases that are in place. So there was no secrets. We and Situla followed the process that we believed to submit it to the county. It was submitted to the county. You're pointing to a period of time that elapsed before you knew about it. That's a county problem.
It is, a big
That's
one.
not a Preston problem. It's not a Situla
I'm
problem.
not saying it was your problem, but it did, ball got dropped.
But that was the
It went
reason
off
for my
the field.
question. Sometimes projects come to town. A great example is the Arby's on 27th Street. That sat up there for, everybody was guessing to see what was gonna go in there, and nobody wanted anything to do it until it was time that they made the announcement.
Sure.
Was that discussion ever held with you guys as far as this project was
Did you
concerned?
talk to Billy Maven about keeping that from the board?
No, hell no.
Well, how'd Billy Maven's name get on the application 6 months before we ever heard about it on KNEB News?
I couldn't even begin to tell
Thank
you
God
this.
for KNEB, you
I couldn't
know?
even begin to tell you. Again,
Cause
that's-
I know that there's times where people, they're looking at other leases and they don't want it out until it's time to do something with it. That's why I asked whether or not that discussion was held with you guys or anybody else.
Too bad Gene's not here. So the fact that the land is leased is public record.
Okay.
So no, it's
Yeah,
not a
I have
secret.
a copy of it. I have a copy of that lease in my phone, you know, but like I said, the board wasn't notified, so you're saying, well, why don't you have some policy? Well, had we have known you guys were doing that, if you'd have came in here and said, hey, guys, what do we need to do? I think we could have all sat down with grown men and you'd agree to the 3 or 4 items that we needed to do.
But
And
the
moved on.
the only thing, and we brought this up at the beginning, once the permit was taken out, you can't go back and change the rules to meet, you could do the conditional use, which is what we did.
What do you mean conditional use? We didn't do any conditional use. That's what they
No,
applied for. We haven't done
listen
that.
what I'm telling you.
That's, we haven't done that. That's not
Listen,
been filled out.
Okay. All I'm saying is, once the permit was taken out, the permit was applied for, then you can't look at it and go, oh, I don't know if I like that, so let's add
Isn't
some
that
more
how
rules.
you backdoor things? You go around and you get the permit and you say, oh, I applied for it. Now I got all the rules
No,
in my pocket.
it
So we're
works-
just gonna give
it
them
works
all,
in the
you're gonna
city.
give them guys all the rules
It
they
works
want?
anywhere else like that, Russ. When you make application, just because you don't like the application, or you don't like what's
Isn't
gonna
that
happen.
we don't like the application, Kenny? We don't have anything like that. We're talking about almost,
Okay.
we got $750 million project going in here. And we don't have any decommissioning, same as the sugar factories, we're gonna wind up when it's all done.
Was
people-
that was that included in their conditional use?
Heck, no, we don't have any policy, that's why it's not in there.
Was it not included in the conditional use though? Did they discuss
There's
it?
nothing in there, there's no decommissioning in that.
I thought there was an agreement made on that.
There were suggestions,
There was a
but there were
suggestion of all
never
kinds.
any
But my
conditions.
point is, and I'll give you a classic example, when Dr. Johns came to town, okay? And I know I don't wanna, we're not talking about apples to apples here, but kind of.
Kinda,
When Dr. Johns came to town, the city, and I was with them at that time, wanted to add all these new rules and regulations to keep Dr. Johns from coming to town. Guess what? We couldn't do it, because we already had an ordinance that allowed what it is that he wanted to do.
see, we don't have one of these right now, we don't have any ordinance.
Well, we have the conditional use, but, you know,
Conditional use is
we
not
can
an
argue it all night long, but,
Conditional uses, that means that
after
they
the-
can keep their tax base the same on grassland.
but after the permit was applied for, then you can't go back and add rules and regulations that apply to that permit. That's what I'm saying,
Okay, if that's the
unless
case-
it's conditional use, and that's what they
Then
went
why
for.
would the planning commission vote on, why were we asked to vote on, why didn't you guys just run with it? How do we get it stopped then if that's the way it works?
With the conditional, if you aren't satisfied with the conditional uses
I'm not.
that were put on there, then you vote it down.
We did.
That's fine.
So,
but I
okay, so
mean,
we
to
did,
add-
so if it's fine, we did it, and
but-
that's where we're at.
But to add new rules and regulations to something after permit has already been applied
That
for.
permit was applied for in the wrong name, we sent that to the bottom of the pile, it's
Okay.
gonna be reapplied for in the right name, in
Well-
between,
Okay,
we're
all right,
gonna
it-
go ahead.
A conditional use permit allows us to put additional
Additional items on that permit, yes,
items on it.
which is what they
And
did.
that's what it allows us to do.
Did
And
we
to
even?
me,
Yeah,
that's what happened, to the extent that, it wasn't gonna be agreed to, and, now, I think our only choice, unless we find out otherwise from an attorney, is that we try and move forward as quickly as possible to
This other-
deal with those items that we need to, and put those things in writing, and let these folks try and figure out whether they can meet those requirements, or if they feel they can't.
Right.
Whatever the case is, let's put our requirements in writing, and we're not doing it for this one project.
It's gonna be for
We're
every
doing
project.
it for the next 30 projects.
Correct.
And I think, that's the main thing that I think we have to do, and that's find out how other people have done it. Hopefully, we can move that through quickly, and then give them, the information that the 6-month moratorium might be able to be reduced to 3, if we can get on with it
I
and
don't
get
know
it
that you're
done.
gonna done in 3, it may take.
I don't either,
It
but
might take 9, but.
However
Well, here-
long it takes.
Back to that paper that, Kyle Long brought to us, that paper that he's talking about was made to Situla, and not to Preston's, it was applied for under the wrong name, we've already crossed that bridge. So that doesn't carry any water at all, because we're not holding up Situla, we're holding up Preston's. Preston's haven't got their name on a permit yet, and they're the ones that says a landowner must apply for a conditional use permit. It doesn't say Joe Blow can do it, a landowner must apply.
Well, I
Okay,
think
and
what,
those are the things that need to be listed according to what Kyle said as to the reason why that permit was denied.
That permit was filed.
Whatever, however many items there are, needs to be, come
That
out.
complaint that was brought in tonight is on the wrong filing and the wrong name, which is null and
Then-
void.
then
We've
that-
already voided that.
Then that needs to be one of the items that is the reason that it was denied, along with whatever else are there. That's what that statute is asking for.
That's fine.
the reasons, yeah.
Okay, is there anybody else?
Anybody?
All right, then we will,
Sure.
board and staff reports?
Oh, not done
No,
yet. I'm ready.
no.
I gotta go
We'll
to-
start, anything over here?
I just had one thing, this past Friday, I attended the, NREN board meeting in Kearney. NREN is the
Could
acronym
you
for,
come over here?
Well,
We can't hear.
this past Friday, I attended the, NREN board meeting in Kearney. And NREN is an acronym for the Nebraska Regional Interoperability Network. It's a system of microwaves throughout the state of Nebraska that can move all types of data. And the reason I attended is because I'm the Panhandle representative and I sit on that board of directors. It's been something that's continually been worked on for years, and will be for at least some time before it's completed. But that's just something that I do that I didn't know if you guys were aware about. And last meeting was this past Friday.
Okay, very good. Thank you much.
Yep.
Where are we at here? Callie, you're the only one left.
Yeah?
I think we took 175 protests today, and
So what is that
we
total?
were, last I knew, we were at 674, but I don't know that we'd entered everything that my office received on Friday.
So we could be 700?
Oh, 800.
Oh, we're
Or
gonna be
800?
800 or 900
Yeah.
protests.
Gonna be
So
2 weeks
we've
here,
cut into
so-
evenings, we've shortened up lunches, you might have to rotate. We're back to the olden days, long days.
Back to the old days. Okay.
Okay,
So we're
Keep us
going,
posted.
we're going 9 AM to 9 PM for 2.5 weeks right now?
I knew we were gonna go
there
through
should
the
be a
dinner hour.
superintendent of schools here for every one of these sessions here.
I knew we were gonna go through the dinner hour, but I didn't know how late we were gonna go after
Okay.
that.
The 8th were 9 to 9, the 9th were 9 to 9, the 10th were 9 to 9, the 11th were 9 to 9, the 12th were 9 to 6,
I'm gonna get an air seat out of a truck and sit over here.
the 15th, we have a regular commissioner meeting, so we're done at, I think our last appointment is at 2:45. 16th, we are 9 to 6 at this point. And I'm gonna have to honor emails that are coming through, cause we had to
Okay.
set up the protest email address. 17th, 9 to 9. 18th, 9 to 9. 19th, 9 to 6. 22nd, 9 to 9. 23rd, 9 to 8:30 at this point. And when I left, we had about 10 people that were waiting for return calls to get them on the schedule, so those might fill up as well. And then the 24th were 9 to 9. We did not schedule
Now,
on
do
the
you-
25th because we need to have
So we're
everything heard by then.
2 full weeks and then the third week into Wednesday. Is that what I'm seeing here? Gotcha.
Are you scheduling those? We have a couple people waiting, 'cause last year we had a couple holes, we set an hour, there was nobody came.
I am not getting no hearing neededs from Robert to be able to fill those time slots, so I cannot guarantee that.
You can't start people early, so they have double in the morning, so
We can
we
s-
have one person.
We can start people early, but if they don't come here until their appointment time, we can't start them.
That's what I'm saying, can we move those appointment times up, so like we have double appointment, the first hour, and then run it through the rest of the day, because we always run
Instead
out
of
of people.
4 appointments in the first hour, you want 8
We-
appointments
you
in
know,
the first hour?
These people get to wait 1 hour for the month of July, if we get to wait 1 hour for everybody that don't show up, that's a lot of hours, we waited a lot last year.
Well, there's a lot of times when we get ahead of schedule, and then there's also times when we sit and wait for 2 hours
I know,
because
we sat
for
back a
somebody
long
who
time.
don't show up. I think the way they've been doing it, scheduling, I think there's probably
Yeah.
the fairest way to go. And it is,
I know
it's
they're
awful both ways.
they're working very hard down there trying to get
Oh, I know
everybody
they
in.
are, but it'd just be nice if we had somebody who had them stacked up a little more.
Okay. All right. I need a motion. Do you want to go into executive session, Charlie?
I do.
Do I have a motion?
I would make a motion to go into, executive session, well, we haven't done board reports yet. We
Oh,
just
no,
did-
we haven't. You're right.
We just did staff.
All right, well, let's do board then we'll move on. Russ, we'll start with you.
Oh, my, Road and Bridge has got, sunflower oil and cook oil roads both chip sealed, and they did a really nice job. I mean, those guys are, they're as good as a highway crew. I mean, they're really gotten on to the business. And, saving us a lot of money, getting a lot of roads covered, so it's going well.
Okay.
Tourism, we had a meeting, with tourism a week and a half ago. Ken and I were both there. There's some concerns, with interpretations of statutes and that kind of stuff, so I would like the board and the tourism committee to have a joint meeting. You know, we should probably just hash some things out with the two boards present. There'll be a lot to discuss there, you know, both difficult conversations and some really exciting conversations to get this thing, get everybody pulling in the right direction, the same direction. You know, I shared some information with the board over the weekend regarding, sports commissions, youth sports tourism, and how those things are driving economic development in other locations. You know, basically, long story short is 2 years ago, the tourism committee spun off what they call the Scotts Bluff County Sports Commission. They did, nothing for a year, and then they hired a consultant who cost a lot of money, gave us a playbook. That playbook was given to us 15 months ago, and again, here we are today with nothing from that playbook being implemented. And so at the workshop we have, or the work session we have planned for, what is it, July 29th? I put an agenda item on there for us to go over statutes, to go over the playbook that we got from the consultant, and just kind of some anecdotal stuff here to kind of prep you for this. The city of Gearing, they had an article on KNB.com last week where they're talking about the success of the bus tourism. You know, every time a bus pulls into town, the bus tour, that is, you know, that bus spends $10,000 in town, and the city of Gearing works 12 months out of the year to land 16 buses. So call it $160,000 of economic impact from those bus tours. Well, the 23 Club had a baseball tournament 2 weeks ago, and that one tournament brought between $300,000 and $400,000 of economic activity to the area. So what I would really like to see us do is follow this playbook that the consultant gave us, which is to fill in the map, essentially. Scotts Bluff is a void on this map between North Platte, Rapid City, Gillette, Casper, Cheyenne, Front Range. You know, all these cities, all these towns, all these youth sports teams, they all travel to each other's tournaments, and our teams travel to all of their tournaments, but nobody comes here for a tournament. So if we had a sports director or a CEO of a sports council, that person could be focused on bringing sports tournaments to our area. You know, if we could land 10 or 12 large tournaments that are similar to what the 23 Club did 2 weeks ago, that would be millions of dollars of economic activity here. I was gonna say something else about that, but you know, this is all part of the playbook. So what I want to do at the work session is go over the state statutes that govern tourism, go over the playbook that the consultant provided for us over a year ago, and just start driving this thing forward. I would like to see us pushing this thing forward rather than just using this playbook as a doorstop, and go from there. TCD canceled its, meeting last week, or 2 weeks ago, due to, in preparation for the storm we had that Thursday night. I thought Jordan gave a pretty good update here. We did have they have provided a resource to us to work on that Safe Streets grant. So TCD and the Nebraska Association of County Officials are working together to identify the grants, but we need a point person from the county to provide TCD with the data that they need to fill out the grant applications. We've sent a couple emails back and forth between Lisa, myself, TCD, to help identify who that person is gonna be, and it just keeps getting to a stalemate where emails aren't getting returned, that sort of stuff. So, we need to push forward, and this has kind of been a theme I'm seeing. It all kind of came to head when Reggie was talking last week about, what's the holdup? What is the holdup? Why hasn't this RFP gone out? Why hasn't this tourism playbook been implemented yet? Why hasn't the resource for the county to help TCD apply for these grants for us? Why have all these things just been talked about and not realized? So, we need to push these things forward. This is, and we're just, we talk about these things and then we kind of regress to the mean, regress to the mundane, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 9 to 4 here at the courthouse, and just not getting a whole lot done. So I'm going to drive this thing forward if I have to. So, expect phone calls. Please answer your phone calls. It's frustrating when I call someone and they don't call back, and I always get phone calls back with the board. You guys always do a good job of communicating, but if I have to wait 3 or 4 days for a phone call back from a county employee to answer a question, that's no bueno. That's not. We can't move forward with that kind of communication. So, I went off on a tangent there. That's my board report. Sorry.
Okay.
I had, Panhandle Public, Health, I just wanna mention again that Kim Ingles' position, the director, her position's being advertised for. There has been a committee appointed to, do the interviews. I'm not part of that committee. But anyway, that's moving forward, and, I'm anticipating, the requirements for that position, I thought fairly high about their educational requirements and things, but we'll see how many applications, that come in, and then, I'll try and keep you, apprised of, how that process is going on. We also had a, Heartland Express meeting, I think that was last week, and, things are going fine there. There's a meeting, that's gonna be held in Chadron, I believe it's in November. You guys will be getting, invitations to that. I believe the process there is still moving forward the best that we can, but, the issue's still funding all along the way, and trying to get funding through federal sources and or state sources, and, that's kinda where we're at. That's it.
Okay, I had a developmental disabilities meeting, Region 1 meeting, aging office meeting, nothing really fantastic coming out of any of those groups, just business as usual. Kaplan's tomorrow night. I am concerned about the number of protests that we're going to have. I sent just a short email to Robert in answer to something that he had sent out about procedurally what he would like to see us do here. I disagreed with it. My own opinion. You guys can do what you want on who we're going to listen to, who we're not going to listen to, on and on. In the subsequent email that I sent him, I did indicate that early on in his career, he indicated that we need to do something about land. And I said, okay. I said, let's not all do it in 1 year.
I remember that.
And I think that's what's happening.
I'm not happy with these land prices at all.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And I know it's a new office. I know that everybody's doing the very best they can down there to try to get stuff through. And, you know, in my few years being here, I don't ever remember a protest happening out in front of the courthouse on taxes and assessments. People are upset. People are very upset. And I think we're gonna hear that when they come in. And I think we need to obviously listen to all of them. But I don't know that it's gonna be a fun 2.5 weeks, to be honest with you.
We lowered so many things last year, we're gonna have the repeat people here again.
Yeah, well, we have that every year. If you lower it 1 year, it goes right back up the second year unless the assessor's office
Time to
is
move
wanting
on now. I think it's time to move those forward.
And, it all depends. It all depends on whether they have the paperwork to justify what it is that they're doing. Those are the reasons we lowered it.
That's why that office is downstairs. We can't sit here and evaluate things. That's not our, I mean, I didn't go to school for that. I don't have the
But
education for that.
That's what the protests are for. When they bring
I agree.
documentation,
I
that's
agree.
our job, just to look at it and make a decision on it.
But they normally bring it to the assessor first. He looks at it before we do. I mean, their office looks at it. I mean, it's
Sometimes.
kicked on up to, you know, chain of command here.
Sometimes, but when they show up here, we have a duty to listen to what they have to say. And if we lowered it last year for the comparables or whatever else they had, if they have similar documentation that goes with what they're doing, then we need to listen to it.
Absolutely, we do that. I
Yeah.
agree with that. But
I'm not gonna sit here and just go by whatever somebody says, this is what it is. That's not our job as a Board of Equalization, is to make sure that they've been treated fairly.
But that Board of Equalization goes both ways. If they've raised a whole, let's say a whole area of land, and we lower 2 of them, we've offset it's not equal, we've changed the equalization.
Those two are the ones that protested. And if they have the proper documentation, then we're required to listen to it, hear what they say. We did it. We've been doing it for years.
Yes, but they've gotta get the same people in the same areas, and they've raised all those areas. I mean, if you take an area,
If they've been treated differently, then that's our job to make that determination.
but they can't go across town, it's gonna have to be the people in that area. We've gotta look
And we'll
close
deal
on
with
that.
that when they
That's what
come
we gotta
here.
pay attention to.
Yeah. But that was my.
And I think those land values are way above and beyond what I ever thought land would be worth in
And
this
we'll
county.
have to- and I think that's what we're gonna be dealing with.
Well, yeah, you take a $14,000 lot in Lyman, Nebraska is quite a bit.
Yeah.
When you could buy it last year for 500.
Okay, we'll do
and write
that
a check for it.
when they come, and in fact, I think Lisa's going to protest those, if I remember right.
Okay.
They are filed.
Which ones?
I had my,
From the county?
I had my county housing meeting. I also had a 911 board meeting. During the storm after that, I took care of my place, then I reached out to my neighbors, as I'm trained to do, and got them squared away. I was called out last Friday night to track a lost teenager. Fortunately, we found her about 9:30 Friday night, so things ended up well. And this next Saturday, we're training our new underwater sonar for our rescue boats, so that's what I've been doing.
Okay.
Good.
Motion.
I'll make a motion, go into executive session.
And who do you want in the executive session?
Pardon me?
Who do you want in the executive
board.
session?
Just the board.
Just the board?
And we need a reason.
There's
a reason. purpose?
Personnel, is that what you're saying?
I think that's personnel.
Personnel issue, okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I am ready to
Any
let you
discussion?
record your vote.
Okay, call the,
No, go ahead, push your button.
oh, we can do it now? All right.
Oh, I did it while you guys were talking.
All right, record your votes, please.
Mark?
Yep.
Okay, we'll go into executive session at 7:13. We just probably meet in this room. Lisa's office is locked up.
Yeah.
Kelly, can I have the statute that Kyle gave us?
Okay, I'm gonna.
As long as I get it back for when somebody else wants it.
I'm,
Yeah, I'm full. I don't have much of a choice.
Excuse me, please. I'm gonna shut up the recorder. Can I do a quick roll call?
here,
Roll call.
Meyer,
Yes.
Harris,
Here.
Knapper,
here.
Reisig. Here. Blue.
Here,
Okay, we're back in regular session 7:52. There's no other business.
Hang on, cause we do,
The jail tour.
hang on.
Oh, yeah, we gotta go to jail tour. Crap.
One thing I forgot when I went downstairs is that I can't work if my computer's
All right, I'm gonna have to bring needles with me. Seriously, I have to take a shot at 6 o'clock every night and I miss it, so.
Do we need to, we don't need to vote then? We're not voting on it?
I'm all right, but I'm gonna have to load up some needles in here,
Take this.
so nobody get after my needles.
They'll be thinking you're a druggie.
Yeah, don't be taking my drugs.
My wife bought me this.
That's pretty
She said, maybe you should keep that
Okay.
in your desk drawer.
Can we move on, Kelly?
If we could recess at 7:53, I just need a motion to go.
Motion to go to jail?
Motion to go to the jail.
Can I
Recess
fir-
to the jail.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go, call roll.
Record your votes.
Record the votes.
Well, it was planned,
Okay,
Well, excuse me.
good deal.
Charlie.
Okay,
How's
one.
that?
It says okay.
Okay,
All right,
Okay,
we're set.
thanks. We'll call you or text you.
thank you. There goes my hip again. Dang it.
Where I get big, long blonde hairs from.
I enjoyed her chat on Saturday. It reminded me of the good old days, when you used to answer.
Well, it was too noisy for me to answer.
We should do that more often.